I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue.
I mean, Keir Starmer's not...
Well, he did make a call about this.
No, Keir Starmer is every bit as enslaved as Donald Trump is. It is illegal. It is a crime for which you can be arrested in Britain right now, criticizing Israel.
I want to cut my off and scramble my brain with fucking fluoride. I'm going to win because Netflix is worth $3 trillion. I can't believe the dollars are this high.
It's a society that hates God. It's a society where the family is completely deconstructed and destroyed. It's a society that hates Nazis but loves communism.
You're always confronted with the same stupid question, does Israel have a right to exist? Does Israel have a right to exist? The real question at this point is whether the rest of the world has an obligation to put an end to this.
Hello and welcome to Right Wing Pulse. I'm your host, Matt, with Foul Ball Productions. This is the weekly roundup of all the interesting right-wing conversations going on across the internet and other mediums, although are there other mediums anymore? TV and radio? If you guys can find an interesting TV or radio show that I should listen to, please, by all means, DM me on Twitter, put it in the comments down below, because I need to know. If there's something cutting edge going out over like government controlled airwaves, that is something I need to be informed on. I have not heard of any of that. I actually used to date a girl who would listen to the radio, like FM, regular commercial radio in like modern era. And I was baffled by this. I was like, you listen to the radio? I thought maybe it was just on. You know how sometimes when you like take off you unpair your iPhone or you detach it from the aux cord or whatever, like it kind of like reverts back to radio? I thought that's what it was. No, she listens to the radio. I was like, with commercials? Like you listen to commercial radio? That's crazy. Like that's insane. The only time I ever watch anything with commercials is like if I'm forced to, if I'm happening to be watching sports or something, which I so rarely do. But I mean, yeah, I pay for YouTube Premium specifically so I can avoid commercials. And to listen to the radio, bananas. Anyway, if you guys have not been on this show, this is, I guess it's like something you could like akin to A-logging, although I feel like that's pejorative. But essentially what we're going to be doing is going over a bunch of different conversations that went on this week, although to be completely transparent, one of them did not go on this week. I try to keep it as current as I can, but this one was the week prior. But you'll understand why I picked it. And we kind of go over some of the ideas. The last show, which was over a month ago now. Isn't that crazy? I just moved. For you guys who don't watch my podcast, who don't follow the MFR podcast on Foul Ball Productions, I had to move across the country to be with family during a tough time. And that was from Texas to New York. It was quite the move. So I had to drive across the country, and I've been getting settled, and that's why I missed some Sundays. But I'm here. I'm here to do the Right Wing Pulse. I'm here to do the show, and we're going to get into it. We're going to get into some interesting conversations. ZebBoykin is in the chat. What is up, Zed? Sorry, guys, I need to fix the membership thing again. YouTube is gay. YouTube can be quite gay. YouTube's been very gay to me on my main channel. There, people just unsubbed, just randomly unsubbed. Also, not getting notifications for my show. My last two live streams, it was like they didn't happen. They just were like, it was just me. It was just me and like three dudes in the chat. But that's how it goes, man. That's the grind. That's the YouTube hustle. But hello, Zeb. Yeah, New York State. It's pretty country out here. It's not like the city. Not New York City. It's the state, but it's family. So I'm from the East Coast. What do you want from me? This is where I was from. This is where my roots are. That created the radical, the online radical that you see before you. But Atlas Thugged, what's up, dog? How you doing? Just got back from Chicago. Good to see everyone. Good to see you, Atlas. Atlas has been a workhorse recently. He has been live streaming like an animal, like every day. Maybe that's why my numbers have been down. Everyone's watching Atlas's show. I don't blame you. Kex Dead, what's going on? Did you go in the streets for the Knicks win? Me? No. I'm in like upstate. It's near a town called Hudson. So it's like, I don't know, like an hour and a half north of New York City. So it's actually, I was looking at it. It's on a similar parallel as like Massachusetts, like Southern Mass. We're like that far up here. I do not want to be here in the winter. I need to get back to Texas by the winter, man. But Smelly Balls here, Smelly Balls W. Smelly Balls single-handedly keeping my Twitter engagement alive. Thank you very much, Smelly Balls. You are a real one. You are a real one. Pine, what is up? What is up? Oh, thanks, Atlas. You're a good man. But he's been killing it recently. I don't even know. When guys stream every day, I'm just like I have a buddy, Leon. He's done my show a few times, Words of Paradise. He's got a good channel. You guys should check him out. But he does a video and a live stream every day. I'm like, I don't even understand those words. How do you even? I feel like I'd be repeating myself. I don't know. It's like, but you know what? Maybe you just put yourself in that grind. You get you those skills, those muscles get stronger. I don't know. It seems like a lot, but Atlas has been doing it. Atlas has been going hard and then going on Kick as well, like expanding the empire. So much respect to that. Real recognize real. Right back at you, Smelly Balls. Right back at you. All right, so we got some good conversations to go through today. Probably the one that's going to take up the bulk of the show was Right Wing Coalition went on a channel I was just introduced to. They're called FroJax. They're two brothers. From what it's the only thing I've ever seen from them. Shout out to Craig Butler, Elite Groiper on Twitter. I did a stream with, or I did a show with him, a pre-recorded show with him the other night, and he's going to be putting that out soon. But we were talking about this very interview, and he's like, "You should check it out." I was like, "Say less," and I checked it out, and that's going to be the bulk of the show probably today. These guys are, like I said, former musicians turned right-wing white nationalists. I guess I don't really know. I don't want to tell tales out of school here, but that's the impression I got. They seem pretty cool, but Joey always worth listening to what Joey's got to say. I just finished so close to finishing reading his book, American History Z, right there. Damn near done. I have like 10 pages left. It's a fantastic read. If you haven't gotten down with Joey's book, go ahead and pick up a copy. It's fantastic. It's a quick read. It's like 212 pages. And it tells it's like what I describe it as cultural storytelling. He's basically telling the story of politics of the last 10 years, but specifically from the perspective of like dissident right or kind of the more right-wing Gen Z. And it's fascinating, man. He does such a good job detailing every beat in that evolution and encapsulating things and so much stuff that I forgot about. I forgot, and we talk a lot of shit about Trump, and it's deserved. It is deserved. But I forgot all about when they were trying to pass off Biden as like cognizant, as like, having a functioning brain. And he was detailing that in the book. And I was like, oh, yeah, they did try to do that. They tried to gaslight everybody. He has this great line in the book where he's talking about the left. And he says, the left who seem incapable of identifying a glass of water without a chemist present. And I was like, yeah, yo, that is so spot on. That's exactly right. Unless an expert gives the green light, you can't even say how do you know that's water? There's other clear liquids. You don't know. How could you know? Are you an expert? I was like, damn, nailed it. But it's a great book. I recommend doing it. I'm probably going to do a review on my channel, but that'll be sometime. I can't guarantee when that'll come out. But, watch my show on Tuesdays, the MFR podcast, before we get into it. W. Craig Capo, abso-fucking-lutely. Tix Bomber, I hate YouTube. I never get your live notifications, even though they're turned on. That was happening on, Foul Ball Productions. I have no idea what's going on with YouTube. I guess you just need to make it, set a Google Cal alert for what do I do now? 8 Eastern. Now the time zones got me screwed up. It's 8 Eastern, 9 Eastern, and 8 Eastern. That's the 3 shows I do a week. So yeah, I don't know. Give yourself an alert. Set a notes app. It's ridiculous. I don't know why they're doing that. I don't know what, enough's enough. But, okay, we got some FroJax fans right here. Breakout is a fan of FroJax. All right, we're going to get into that. The FroJax brothers are Instagram WNs. Oh, okay. All right. That seems to be like a pathway. Now, that's how Ian Carroll did it for, better or for worse. But that's how his profile rose. And Vrillium, I believe that's how Vrillium's profile rose. Not really the best the best company yet, but I think it's probably a way to do it. I had a real short TikTok go kind of viral over the weekend about the Great Britain grooming gangs thing. And man, I said it kind of sarcastically. I was saying about how, we don't need to regime change in Iran. We need regime change in England. And man, the English were like, yes, please come give us some regime change. They are hurting over there. So, Kexted, y'all literally making your online ecosystem seems to be working. I'm grinding. Not as hard as Atlas, but it does seem to be working, man. It does seem to be like things are growing. I feel like it's crazy. I know I'm just babbling. I know we're going to get into the show, but it is crazy how I think it was I don't know. I put out that Fuentes video about maybe, 9 months ago, 10 months ago, something like that. And then I started talking, then my algorithm started recommending these Gen Z right-wing guys that I didn't even know existed. Brand new to me, had no idea that there was this growing movement. And now that's like my network. Those are like my online friends. They're like all the Gen Z right-wing guys. I had never anticipated that. Did not see that going that way. But hey, life comes at you fast. All right, so let's get into it. So we got some clips from Academic Agent. If you're not familiar with Academic Agent, I think he still calls himself a classical liberal, but I see no evidence of that. He seems to be a lot more base than that. And he's a professor from Wales, I want to say. And he's got some pretty good takes. I think his content, he would probably do better. Not that he needs my advice, but I think his content would be more digestible if it was edited, like if he made it more concise, because it's just kind of him talking and it gets a little dull. It's like inconsistent. There's it drops off the interest at times, but what he's saying is very good, so I think he just needs to edit. But anyway, this was from a show he did a few days ago called The Libertarian Consensus is Collapsing. It's actually something that me and Atlas have talked about when he's been on my channel. We've talked about libertarianism in general. So this is one of his points about what is libertarianism's answer to mass immigration. They don't really have one.
No state is required whatsoever. Rothbard goes far enough that he becomes what they call an anarcho-capitalist. He doesn't actually believe the state is necessary whatsoever. I would say that in this case, you can see that with a stronger state, populism is explained by list. I would argue that the lack of robust interventions in the economy have and the fact.
Smell the glove. I like his videos. I like how he does them. Editing seems fake. That's fair. But I think sometimes he takes 45 minutes to be, to say something that could be said in 15. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not to shit on the guy at all. I think he's based as hell, and I think his content's strong. I just think there's, it's if you could save me some time and get to the meat of it. But he does kind of do a current events cutting edge show. His streams or his episodes are done daily. And so I understand that. But sometimes, especially with the ideas, which is what he's focusing on now. I know he said he's going to stop focusing on the, on current events now, more about just the sort of philosophy of different thinkers and different leaders throughout history. And in that sense, then you could definitely edit. Hence the moniker Lolbertarian. They are unserious people with unrealistic goals or visions. Are we getting spammed? Are you spamming the chat, bruh? Can someone ban him? Okay, you're in timeout. You're in timeout, dog boy. Fair enough. My morning commute is 30 minutes, and he drops him at 6 a.m. Perfect length for my trip. Oh, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, there you go. No, it's not even to say there's anything wrong with his content, and that's his style. And he, like I said, he's doing great. I just feel like, we could get more information in less time.
That the market has been allowed to reign in certain areas has uprooted many industries that used to be there, and runaway immigration is another example. That's basically the market in action. People going where there's low economic opportunity to places where there's high economic opportunity. That's the basic driver of immigration. Various other things, outsourcing, that's the free flow of capital. And all of these things line up, I would argue, with a list's view of things. Whereas in the proposed anarcho cap.
So what he's talking about specifically is like libertarianism not really having an answer to mass immigration, right? Because as you're seeing right now with our country, we're obviously not doing the mass deportations. Rip nationalism, rip cultural identity. But what you're seeing, and there's a reason for it. It's not purely just because Trump is a charlatan. That is true, but the reason is because there's interests in the nation that have a very vested interest and a financial interest in making sure there's lots of cheap labor, whether it's H-1B or hospitality workers, farm workers, whatever. Your bottom line goes down if all of a sudden your labor costs triple. If you have to start paying people like what the wage of this, this is elementary stuff, right? But that's the fact, is that there's so many multinational corporations. There's so many corporations that aren't really, they're American like in name only, but they are global institutions at this point. And so they're not really serving the interests of the United States. And if you're a libertarian, like, well, what's your answer to that? How do you address that? How do you deal with the fact that, it's like, okay, but if it's just a free market, then that's going to erode the fabric of the culture. And that is important, because without the stability, without the makeup, without the excellence of the West, are you even going to have this type of innovation? I mean, what sort of culture are we going to be left with? And furthermore, I don't want my culture hollowed out to be some husk for like a tech corptocracy in the future. That's not really my interest. And there are, I would say it's tough to pin down the libertarians because there's so many freaks. There's so many freaks. Like, they just elected like a new leader. I don't even know what his position is in the Libertarian Party, but they took a picture of him at the event, and his shirt said, "This is the only shirt I own that doesn't have cum on it." That was the shirt that the guy was wearing. And it's like, okay, man, like, I know you're a libertarian and you don't necessarily have to wear a suit, but was that the choice? I mean, that's an inappropriate shirt in any context. What are you doing? Like, outside, once you walked out the door of Spencer's, where you most likely bought that, I don't know if that's still a thing, but it seems like a Spencer's thing, that was inappropriate to wear anywhere outside of your own home. And it's just like, dude, you guys are a fucking joke. And I think what ended up happening with the libertarians is I still firmly believe there are some smart libertarians, principled libertarians, educated libertarians, but I think they got infiltrated by these ultra woke people who, they're like, there's a system with even less restrictions and rules, and I could just be a degenerate, communist freak, like an anarcho, drug using, like I could be ultra woke. I think they took over like they did so many institutions, like they did so many spaces, and that's all you're left with. And I kind of want to have a conversation with some of these more intelligent libertarians, like a Tom Woods, and I want to ask, like, are you abandoning that label? Or are you guys going to try to fight to get it back? Because it seems like it's all done. You know what I mean? That's over. Libertarianism now is kind of a punchline. Like, I think Dave Smith does good analysis. I think Scott Horton next to Fuentes is the best foreign policy analyst out there. I'm sure there's others, but those are the ones that I consume that I think are just razor sharp and so acutely observing what's going on. But, libertarianism is gay, bruh. Like, the economics and stuff, I think they've got things to contribute to the conversation, no doubt. But just the moniker of being a libertarian is just like, seriously, bruh? Seriously? Camion the Fifth. A lot of online libertarians love lolies. Oh, no wonder they love freedom so much. That makes sense. That's what I was saying. Like, there is that kind of, they're like hedonistic anarchists. They're not like economic or constitutional libertarians. They want the most like degeneracy possible, and they have projected that lifestyle or that sort of government onto libertarianism, which like they basically, but it's like, with those, not that I would ever seriously engage with those people, but it's like you will never have the safety and stability, as it is in the United States of America. But without the order, without the rules, without the restriction, without the border, you're seeing how far we're falling right now. And so it's like, so you want none of that? The country will be gone in a week, dude. A month. You won't like, unless you've got like a walled compound with 10 feet high concrete walls and snipers patrolling the what's it called, the barricade, the ramparts. Is that the right word? What am I trying to say? Those things that are on the on a wall, the watchtowers. Anyway, you're kind of fucked. I mean, there's really no chance that that's going to work. Dimitril says money over morality. I mean, dude, yeah. Line go up, but country go down. Atlas says, Foul Ball, I recently quit doing the vertical secondary stream. It seemed to be doing more damage than helping. Fair enough. You know what I started to do with that was I turned off commenting. I wouldn't let the vertical people comment unless they subscribed for 5 minutes, because what ended up happening was that we were just getting flooded with the most ridiculous comments. So we'll see how it goes for tonight. Maybe I won't do it next time. It's kind of a cheat into getting in front of people, but then it's like, how valuable are the eyes that are actually watching? Hard to say, but hard to say. What's up, Papa Cotton? How you doing, brother? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. All right, let's listen to a little bit more of Mr. AA.
State. I mean, I don't really know how Rothbard would suggest controlling immigration or controlling the flow of capital, from one place to the other. And there's one thing that, the market cannot control is just the lay of the land. The fact that there is lots of different countries in the world geographically, and lots of different people from lots of different places. Obviously, there's no control over that from the human point of view. So that's not going to stop. I mean, if there was global anarchy, if there were no governments, there's nothing to stop that massive flow of people and all the problems that it causes. It's worth mentioning here that lists.
And obviously, it doesn't even need to be said if you're hanging out on this part of the internet, but we're seeing the negative aspects of that just sort of unrestricted flow. And the libertarians and a lot of people are not taking into account the blood and soil nature of a country. It is the people. It is the people, their culture, their customs, their religion. It is. And anyone saying otherwise, I feel like is a nefarious actor or just completely ignorant to the situation, but more likely nefarious, because why would you say that unless you had like a anti-Western, anti-Christian, point of view, worldview? Excuse me. Because it's like that's obvious. Like that's just sort of you would without thinking about it, you would just understand that the French are the French, the Germans are the Germans, the Italians are the Italians, the Saudis are the Saudis, the United States are the United States. We are in a unique position because ours is not part of a 1,000-year-old tradition. It's a new thing, and it is an amalgam, whether we like to, accept that or not. It's like I'm not like 100% any ethnicity. I'm Italian, Irish, Hungarian, German. Like it's just, I'm like I'm a tapestry of all different Europeans. And, the European part is important to observe. There is a difference. I mean, you're seeing that being vindicated so hard this past week with all like the Scots like taking over Boston and how well they like integrated with the culture and how everybody just loved them. It was like, yeah, obviously there's something to that. Like I said, anyone pretending otherwise, I think, is just a nefarious actor. But the libertarians, it's like, that's not even a factor. They're just like, well, capital. It's like, bro, what if the people are incapable of even like accepting your concepts? Like, what if they're like the non-aggression principle is something they talk about? It's like, what if they don't honor that? Then what? Then what do you do? We're just going to have little skirmishes everywhere? There's going to be little militias versus like mobs all over the country? Yeah, I'm going to go with no. I'm going to go with that's not the country I want to live in, actually. I would like order. I would like walking around feeling safe, feeling at ease, feeling comfortable amongst my own people. And they get so ideological. They're kind of like socialists that way, where everything is seen through the lens of their ideology, and it is fucking so exhausting. It's so draining. Papa, I clicked on this because most right-wingers are admittedly classical liberals, just like yourself. I'm sick of being told how to be conservative by pussy liberal bitches. Are you talking to me, Papa? You think I'm a classical liberal? Bro, what are you talking about? You're in my chat like every day. You know who I am. What did you forget who I am? Did you get hacked? Did you get hacked, Papa Cotton? What's going on with you, dude? Are you drunk? Are you on acid? This is you're a completely you just liked this street. You know who I am, bro. That's weird. You might have gotten hacked. That's not who you said you were. A classical liberal? I'm not a classical liberal. What's his name? Academic Agent is a classical liberal. Get the fuck out of you. Are drunk. Yeah, dude. I don't know what you're talking about. You're going nuts. No, I'm not a classical liberal. Ew, fucking gay. Gross. No way, dude. No fucking way. According to Atlas, you're an Afghani. Ew, but I guess so is Basil. Basil's like pro-Taliban. Dude, I did an interview with him a few weeks ago. He is a fucking trip. He is so fucking funny. Smell the glove. I actually think the Lolberts have a point with the drug war, though. I don't think the government has a place stopping drugs. Social shame should be the way to handle that. I would have agreed with you. First of all, we've abolished social shame. You know what I mean? Slut shaming and, don't fucking harsh my buzz, man. Like, I feel like that's all gone. So unless there would be some like dramatic resurgence in that sort of culture, we're seeing, I think, the widespread negative effects of weed and gambling being legalized. I do think it being illegal but like dully tolerated is preferable, even if it is hypocritical and creates like an unnecessarily like antagonistic relationship with people. I think that kind of dull, that it's illegal and, you're kind of running a risk if you're going to partake in it, is actually the best system, even if it's an operating hypocrisy. Because I think legalizing it would just make our country degenerate in a year. If you could just buy Coke anywhere, like I think the whole culture would just torpedo in a year. I think it would be so bad, bro. I think we'd be really in bad shape. So I hear you, but well, he does say I look like a fit Basil, knife to my heart. Oh, that's brutal, Atlas. That's hard. That's a bridge too far, my friend. I wouldn't say that. I mean, I've never seen you. Maybe you do look like a fit Basil. I have no idea, but it kind of sucks.
His vision was not of a kind of total state, right? He wasn't an absolutist in this sense. What he wanted was a producerist state. And, he didn't advocate for a total lockdown or government controls on the economy. He actually said that it's best internally to have free markets. So List wanted
internally. I like the sound of that. Once again, I don't know why I need to keep making this disclaimer, but obviously Trump is a charlatan. But I liked the idea of having tariffs on foreign nations, on foreign imports and stuff like that, and having a libertarian like economic system domestically for the United States of America. Yes, with strict border policy, strict policing, and foreign tariffs, then yeah, baby, let's fucking go. Like that, I'm with that. Internally, I'm like a free market capitalist all the way. I think that will solve a lot of problems, especially things like healthcare. It's such a regulated industry. I was reading this article the other day. It was a few weeks ago now, so it's kind of hard for me to recall it. But it was basically saying that the insurance companies catch all this flack for being like overcharging and overregulating and all this stuff, but actually a lot of it comes from these hospitals. How many hospitals are allowed to be built? Basically, it's like a restricted industry so that we don't have like a free access of capital, like a free flow of capital to try to fix some of these healthcare problems, right? Because you'd think, this shit should be fucking easy. There's so much money in it. There has to be people who want to innovate, especially with all the different tech companies out there. Like there has to be ways, but it's so heavily restricted and legislated that it becomes nearly impossible. So in that regard, I am very much free market libertarian, but it has to be, it can't supersede the nation. Right? It can't supersede the health of the nation. The nation's health and the populace and the native populace needs to be the number one priority. And if the interests exceed that, if it becomes like we're outsourcing jobs or we're allowing 1 million illegal immigrants to come in, so on and so forth, then yeah, no way. Not into that. But internally, free market libertarianism, based as hell. AI world champion. I don't believe in prosecuting victimless crime. If that's libertarian, I don't care. It's just common sense. Like I said, that sounds great. That's one of those things that's like, yes, a reasonable person can understand that. But when we're talking about drugs and stuff, you people turn into unreasonable people on drugs. And if the access to that is widespread, you know, it be like the society degenerates. You see it with weed. You've seen it with weed. We've all witnessed how much that has degraded the culture. What a huge mistake that was. It sounded like a great idea. It's like, well, everyone's doing it anyway. We might as well capitalize on the tax revenue. And it just turned into such a shit show, right? You know, how many years did that take? You know what I mean? 4 or 5. It's awful. So I actually firmly disagree with you there. I do think, unfortunately, you know, our better nature, having control of our better nature is not a widespread trait. And it is that we are fallible, we are weak, and we will, you know, very many people can succumb to it. So I hear you. I hear what, like, I logically understand the argument, but I don't think it works practically at all. Y'all are way too reasonable and level-headed. I mean, all right. I guess so, brother. I don't fucking know. Oh, yeah, happy Father's Day. That's right. And to Atlas. Atlas is a father. Happy Father's Day, brother. Happy Father's Day to all your fathers out there. I talked to my dad for a while today. Make sure you give him a shout if you haven't talked to Pops. If you haven't talked to your dad by now, maybe there's beef because it's like 8:30 on the East Coast. So, Tix Bomber, ban porn. The Zionist Jew would immediately lose billions, win-win, and bring back decency laws. I'd have to look into the decency laws. I don't really know. Obviously, those are all before my time. Look, I think the culture being like conservative and Christian actually was better overall. That's something I'd have to kind of dwell on a little bit more before I gave my take on it. Like, I hear you. Like, I do. And I think that's probably, let's at least bring back shame. Let's start with bringing back shame, and we'll go from there. You know what I mean? We'll go from there. All right.
Free markets internally, like no internal protections within the nation. What he advocated for was selective protections on key industries that you're trying to grow within the nation. He also says that it is bad policy to regulate everything and to promote everything by employing social powers, where things may better regulate themselves and be better promised by private exertion.
I'll make this concession for you, Smell the Glove. And sorry that your father didn't. Oh wait, no. Who was making that argument? Sorry, Tix Bomber. Was it Tix Bomber? No, I'm losing control. Oh, AI world champion. Sorry. I will make this concession. I'd be willing to hear it out if it meant we severely prosecuted like homeless people, drug addicts. If that was something that was like, you know, you never saw homeless people, like vagrancy nationwide was completely illegal. And then, you know, just policing in general, like that there was just, we had a more orderly society that was safe and easy to walk around, and public transit didn't have fucking homeless people on it. And, you know, there's this beautiful library in Austin, Texas, where I used to live. And I mean, it's gorgeous. I love going there. You know, I like going to the library. I feel like I get a lot of work done. I can really think, you know, well when I go to the library, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's downtown. It's got a great view. There's a lot of cool stuff in the area. But every fucking time I go there, man, there's bums. So many bums everywhere. And it just ruins it. It ruins the whole thing. And it's like, you know, that's that paradox of the social, what do they call the Democratic Socialist? Because they're like, oh yeah, we want all this free shit. We want to provide things like a common good, which I'm not necessarily opposed to. I'm not necessarily opposed to a robust public transit system or like a good like library system. I think stuff like that's great, but you got to keep the bums out. It can't then become unusable. We can't spend millions of dollars and all this tax money on it, and then it becomes an unusable resource. What's the fucking point then? What's the point of even having that? So I would be willing to compromise on it if it was something like, okay, we have a severe, like a draconian no homelessness law, like nationwide, you know, and crime was like steeply policed. Then I'd be more open-minded to it. But honestly, probably not. But I'd be listening to, you know, I'd be willing to listen if that was the circumstances.
So List wasn't saying that the state needs to get involved in every aspect of life, okay, moral matters and things like that. He didn't really advocate for socialist-style welfareism. What he was arguing for was that a robust, state-backed helping of various key industries would be the backbone upon which a nation could be strong. And then if you've got a strong nation, the well-being of the people in that nation would then be looked after as a consequence of that strong backbone.
I take issue with that as well. I think he's talking about sort of basically like having subsidies, like government subsidies for certain industries. I think that's what he's talking about. If he's not talking about that, I apologize. I actually am not huge on that. Like even like wartime subsidies. So there's actually a really interesting subject of study in the United States that happened around World War II. So the Fat Electrician's a good YouTuber, and he did a video on this, and it was great. But I'll give you a little summation. So after Prohibition, all these bars in the United States turned themselves into ice cream parlors. Like if you've ever seen It's a Wonderful Life, you know, he works at that like druggist slash ice cream parlor. And it's like he goes in there and everyone, it's like a thing. You have like ice cream bars essentially. And so the men who were shipping off to World War II friggin' loved ice cream, loved it. So much so that they would even have like these barges that would like follow the men that like made ice cream. So they gave these massive dairy subsidies to the dairy producers to make sure that the boys overseas could have ice cream. It was like a big deal. Well, after the war, they didn't get rid of the subsidies, and the dairy industry just got subsidized to just continue producing more and more of this dairy. Like if you ever saw like the Got Milk ads back in like the 90s, that was an offshoot of all these subsidies. There was like a government program, just like more and more milk, like consume. Like anytime you see all those commercials where it's like extra cheesy, that's because it's like cheese is like free, and they're trying to pump it out. Well, what ended up happening was they did convert a lot of this excess dairy into cheese, like so much goddamn cheese that the numbers are staggering and they sound made up, but it's something like millions of tons of cheese are like in an underground vault in a mountain. This was like a big thing under Reagan because the dairy industry just produced such an excess that there was nothing, they couldn't do anything with all this extra cheese. So they just put it in a mountain. And then Reagan had the idea to distribute it to underprivileged youths, hence that concept of government cheese. If you've ever heard the concept, if you were a 90s rap fan, you would encounter that quite a bit. But these government subsidies, I think a lot of times what ends up happening is that they produce this excess. And it's like, well, you have to have an off switch too. But as anyone understands how our government works, the off switches don't exist. Once something's on, it's fucking on. You know, the fact that Trump even got something like USAID, like, shut off, whatever, better or worse. I don't want to debate the merits of it, but it was like, that's remarkable. Stuff like that just doesn't happen. Entire industries like spawn under these new bureaucracies that exist, and then they just become entrenched, and people's livelihood depends on the rackets then spawn off of them. So I hear what he's saying, but once again, it's like it has to be conditional. It has to stop. If it doesn't stop, then you end up with all these problems. Like the reason why corn syrup isn't absolutely everything is the same thing. Corn's a subsidized product, so processed corn sugar is really cheap compared to processed sugarcane sugar. So it's in every fucking product because it's a cheap option. Same problem. You keep running into these quagmires. So I'm not into it. Guess who got free milk and cheese? Word. I used to go to my mom to wait in line for free cheese. No shit. Yeah, I did not have that issue, but that's interesting. The Mystery of Cheese Mountain. That's it, Carrick Von K. Bro, it's so weird. You know what? I'll put the video because he's a good YouTuber. I like watching Fat Electrician. He does good stuff, and I think it's not always intensely political. Like, you can't be constantly consuming intensely political stuff. Let me see here. There it is. I put in Fat Electrician cheese. 1.5 billion pounds. I'll put it in the chat here, but the America's Secret Underground Cheese Bunkers. 1.5 billion pounds of cheese. That's a true story. That's real. So I don't know about these government subsidies. I'm going to give this a little bit more, and I think we're going to move on to another academic agent video.
Did argue for certain infrastructure being the core functions of the state. Things like
Yes, that's true, Tix Bomber. Cheese Mountain is still a thing, too. Just like chicken is the reason we can't have a Toyota Hilux trucks. That's true. And Fat Electrician covered that. I think it might be in that same video, but it came out, it was like the same thing. It's so nuts. That's why it's like the libertarians, like as ridiculous as they are on a lot of issues, when it comes to stuff like that, they're so spot on. Just let the market sort it the fuck out. Junior Williams. In the 1960s, a scientist from Procter & Gamble discovered tons of hydrogenated waste could be used to make Crisco, essentially the first derivative of seed oils. What do you know? What do you know?
building roads and railroads and bridges and schools, all.
Also, we're going to stop with here, but I'm going on and on about libertarianism. But there are other things too, right? Like I had to make this drive from Texas to New York. And there is like an amazing highway system that spans this entire country. And like private industry didn't make that. Maybe it would under different circumstances. But the fact that it exists, that we took on such a massive civil engineering program and it still stands and it's still functional and you can still navigate this country just driving yourself, the massiveness of this nation, and you can still drive coast to coast anywhere you want, is pretty remarkable. That is pretty amazing, and that's an achievement worth noting. So, you know, it's certainly not black and white, that's for sure. Okay, we're gonna move on to another episode of Academic Agent with a familiar friend. If you guys have been watching this show, a few weeks ago, I had a beef with a creator. Her name is Rebecca Hargraves, blonde in the belly of the beast, as she goes on Twitter, on YouTube. Pretty big channel that she has there. Like over 100,000 subscribers. And I got into something, you know, of one of her videos, and I talked about it, and then she, I guess, found out that I was talking about her and left a pretty aggressive comment. We went back and forth. We have since squashed the beef. We actually are pretty cool behind the scenes. She keeps telling me she's going to do my show, but it's been like well over a month and it hasn't happened yet. So she's got a kid and it's a whole thing. I understand. So, you know, I believe it will happen. I have no idea when. But she did Academics Agent Show last week. This was the show that was a little bit behind. This was like 2 weeks ago, so not technically up to date, but she was on there and I thought it was a pretty interesting episode. It was actually pretty casual for the first 20 minutes. She's like a big Star Trek fan and they were talking about that for a while. And it was a very casual hang for a little while, not too much to jump into, but they did get into some stuff. Basically a kind of a debate or a discussion between like, can we use the system to accomplish our goals, or does the entire thing need to be replaced? And Rebecca is much more on the whole thing needs to be replaced, which personally I take a little bit of issue with, coming from a woman, coming from a mother, all due respect to Rebecca, but it ain't going to be you doing the fighting, sister. You know what I mean? You're basically saying, oh, I want to sign you guys up for a violent revolution. And it's like, I disagree, actually. I disagree with going to war with the federal government. I would prefer to solve our problems politically, actually, because most revolutions fail horrifically. And one in this country wouldn't even get off the ground. So all due respect, sweetie, no. But they do get into it. We're gonna talk a little bit about it. Let's see here. Kex dead. Rebecca is such a LARPer and constantly advocates for violence. She seems like she just says what Wignats want to hear. I think she's sincere. I've talked with her offline. It's consistent. That's how she talks. Like she means what she's saying. She seems to me a bit cynical. You know, she's been at this for a long time, like 10 years or whatever. And I think she doesn't have a lot of hope that things are going to get better or you know, we can accomplish our goals through the traditional means. I disagree with her. I would like to talk to her about that stuff. I like that very subject, I think would be worth having a conversation about. But But I wouldn't call her a LARPer, and I don't think she's grifting. I think she means what she's saying. That's definitely my impression, is that Rebecca is sincere. Whether or not I agree with her conclusions is a separate matter, but I don't think she's a grifter. They do exist. Grifters exist. I don't think she's one of them. Do you guys watch that? Who's that kid who wears like the emo makeup and he's like covered in tats and stuff like that? I don't want to say he's a grifter, but to me, he's just like a racist Asmongold. It's just kind of like, wow, man, what a fucking searing surface level banal observation that was. That's just like, yeah, I mean, obviously, it's like, look, I don't want to shit on the guy. He's like on our side or whatever, but it's just like, I watched some of his shit. I'm like, yeah, dude, that's like the most obvious stuff. That's kind of how I feel about Asmongold. Like, I like Asmongold. I think he's a good dude. But when you listen to him, you're like, this is all right on the surface. This is all just surface level takes. It's not one layer deeper. I'm like, okay. Thanks, buddy. Matt is a Scottish cigarette. I am? You fuck. Oh, that Matt. Okay, I thought you meant me. I was like, hey. Oh, this guy, huh? Blonde is cool as shit. Been following her for years. She's probably the only chick I can take seriously. I like her. She seems to break the no e-girls mold. But I mean, I like a lot of stuff she says. Look, like I said, she's fucking sincere. She goes hard as fuck. So I'm like, all right, well, I respect that. Rebecca's co-hosts have Nick Fuentes' derangement system. She has to counter signal Nick Fuentes, Rebecca. I feel like when I listen to her kind of talk negatively about Nick, I feel like it's more coming from her than Cameron. That's the guy she does the reset with. I haven't watched The Outlaws. I don't know. Once again, like when I've talked to her privately, I feel like she's sincere about it. If she was like trying to just grift positive responses, then she would grift to me, I would think, right? That would track logically, maybe not, but I think she's the one who's against Nick. I think it's all about her kind of revolutionary mindset. I think she's just thinks he's, I don't know, insufficient. I firmly disagree. Also, I was 100% right about what we were talking about when the disagreement came up. It was over Casey Putsch and Dan Bilzerian. Where are they now? Where are they now? How's Dan Bilzerian's campaign for governor or for congressman going? Huh? You got a lot of motion, doing a lot of events, a lot of grassroots support. How you polling, Dan? Total fucking joke. So, obviously I was right. Jake Monroe, that's right, Jake Monroe. And to be fair, I haven't really watched enough of him to actually get a real insight on Jake. So he actually might be great. I don't know. I just watched a few clips. I was like, that's it? That's all you got? The fucking most obvious shit in the world because you have makeup on? Okay. Anyone who calls whites racist is a total cuck. I just meant it as a descriptor, dude. Fucking relax. Calm down, man. Fucking purity test on this side of the internet gets so annoying. I just meant it as a descriptor. He's like a racist Asmongold in the sense that he talks about race issue stuff negatively, but it's on the very surface. Okay? Are your feelings better? You need a fucking Band-Aid for that boo-boo? Relax. Fucking A, man. Been trying to get Atlas to collab, but the goth is kind of off-putting. I guess I'd have to do more research into the guy, watch more of his content. But like I said, it was just kind of like, I don't know. Tix Bomber, I was joking the other day about how he interviewed Gypsy Crusader and GC didn't wear the Joker makeup. I was disappointed. Yeah, they did. I saw that video came up. But like once again, I'm like, I don't. Gypsy Crusader's troll, like his little clips are fine, but I'm not really interested in what that guy thinks, man. Like I'm really not. Like I just feel like it's not going to be particularly insightful. Now I'm not shitting on the dude. He's funny, but it's like, okay, you're also like antisocial. You're like a dick. Like I wouldn't want to know you. You know what I mean? Like you can be racist and still have class. You know what I mean? Just look at the British Empire. They did it for years. Interesting. I only know surface level about him. Yeah, I guess to be fair. I don't really know. He's a solid musician. He looks like it. I don't know. He looks like it. All right. Let's get into the system versus violent revolution.
To try to occupy that space before Restore can occupy it or something like that.
One of the reasons I like to listen to you is that you're still invested in the political sphere. You still believe that there's a political solution. And I'm so far removed from that in America that it'll be very interesting to see if anybody in Western Europe is able to achieve this through political means. I mean, Nigel Farage just seems like such a laughingstock at this point. I mean, I have high hopes for Restore because my British friends do, and I just have.
Yeah, he's. I think he's Welsh and Iranian. I don't know how you say that correctly, but yeah, I think he's Welsh and Iranian. I believe. I don't know the lore all that well, but he's fucking smart.
To be like they know more about this than I do. If they are hopeful about this, then then I should be as well. But I do find it interesting that you must still believe that there's a political solution.
Well, I have to. I mean, that article I released earlier on Substack, I should mention. I mean, look, I did write this book some years ago, Populist Delusion.
I will say this: when we talk calling Rebecca a LARPer, this isn't necessarily directed at her, but I think at this point, anyone who's talking about violent revolution is fucking LARPing. Like, well, when's it going to kick off? Are we going to organize militias? Are we going to organize an army? How much ammunition do you have stocked? Do you have trucks? Do you have a bunker to keep your family safe? Like, what about when the FBI shows up at your house fucking armed? You know what I mean? And starts shooting at you with fucking armored personnel carriers and like MP5s and, and they got you surrounded with snipers. Like, do you have defenses for that? Like, do you have the tactical knowledge to even undertake something as advanced as that? How's your conditioning? How many miles can you run? Like, do you have rations? Do you have the equipment to carry rations? Can you live in the woods for 3 weeks by yourself without anything? It's like, dude, what are you fucking talking about? Like, you get upset when your DoorDash is late. Fucking relax. We're not going to war.
Right. So I cannot, in my heart of hearts, say that I believe in democracy or I believe that,
Oh, I didn't ask you that.
but there is.
I read that book, The Populist Delusion. It's a good book. It's insightful politically. It's about like kind of the nature of political power and political movements in the past. It's a quick read too. There's an AI audio book on YouTube, but I don't recommend it. I got the book from the Austin Public Library. I rented the ebook, but it's worth reading for sure, and it's quick.
Still a thing, I talk about containment a lot, right? Containment, but how can I put this? Historically, the way people get concessions from the powers that be, right? It does take a political fight.
Fucking A, Atlas. Based. Dude, Atlas is a surgeon at deconstructing women and feminist narratives. He is that is your specialty, man. That's your, it's a scalpel and just like, just cut out the rot. It's incredible. I love when you do that shit.
It does take organization, but eventually they can extract a concession from the king, from the government, they have to give some.
I hear what you're saying, Keka's dead. Yeah, that's what I mean by a LARP or advocating for violence as a LARP. Yeah, you are correct. That's spot on. That's a good observation. And I think you're right. I think anyone going down there, especially now, right? Like, things are bad, but like the electricity turns on, the water turns on, grocery stores are full of food. Like, things aren't good, but things could be so much fucking worse. Then it's like, are you willing to give up your life or your family's life? Are you willing to take lives? Like, what are you really talking about getting involved in here, man? Like, I get it. I get frustrated. I get angry. I have moments of just pure like rage about the situation, but like, we got to be adults, And honestly, like, if you are thinking about doing that shit, I wouldn't tell a fucking soul. I would keep that on the QT because you are going to go to prison. And I am definitely not advocating for that. It's really dumb to think you're going to take on the military industrial complex to TBW. What does TBW mean? What is TBW? TBW. Terabytes written? No, I don't think that's what you mean. I don't know what that means. What that means. To be withheld? I don't know what that means. Atlas. Well, worst case scenario, there's an opt to push people to incriminate themselves or to get them uninterested in political solution. Best case scenario, they're grifting. Fucking A. Yeah. Yeah, I think worst case, you're like a glowy. Best case, you're grifting or you're detached from reality. Like you're not really, you're just saying stuff because you're just upset and you feel like being extreme will make the point. But it's just like, dude, people have like families and shit. Like, you're willing to risk that? You're willing to have your kid die? You know what I mean? For your revolution? Like, come on, dude. That's just talking shit. No, e-girls. We are giving her a lot of shit. I do like Rebecca. It's not just because she's beautiful, but it's she seems pretty good. I like to listen to different people, and if I don't have to agree with your entire philosophy to get something out of the conversation. If I disagree with like 90, you're like, all right, after a while, it's a waste of time. But I think she says some interesting stuff. She's pretty keyed in. I mean, let's be real. They could end a revolution just by turning off the internet for 24 hours. Yeah. Antisocial Wignat audience capture. That's why I want to talk to her. That's why I want to kind of press her on this stuff. That's why I want to have the conversation and see what are the limits of her belief system. What does she really think? Like, how applicable is what she's saying? Is she willing to compromise? How is this just emotion? But yeah, I think 100%. I mean, I'd like to know. I'd like to know.
Thing, right? And historically, the British system, right, the ruling class has been very good at staying in power, but it's also, in order to stay in power, has to trade stuff off all the time.
Yes.
So, like, one of the things I talked about in the late 19th century, in the height of laissez-faire libertarian fans, in the classical liberal era, there were hundreds of strikes, right? That is, the workers organize and they're like, look, if you don't stop tying our wages to the price of coal, if you don't stop trying to make us work 15 hours every day and so on, we're just not going to work. And all throughout the 1890s, there were hundreds and hundreds of work days lost. And so what was the British ruling class's solution to this? This is the height of the empire, don't forget. They're like, right, we're going to have to do something here, or there's going to be a communist revolution. So, right, there's going to be a Marxist revolution here, and the workers are going to take over, or they're going to.
And not to mention, just think about how just absolutely horrific a domestic war would be, brother on brother. I mean, if you read anything about the Civil War, it's a hellscape. We talk about all the wars. This country. Well, the wars that the establishment likes highlighting and talking about, which is only a handful. But if you look into them, they're all hell on earth. They're all a nightmare. Realistically, war should be the last option. Like war, not to say like any military force, but war we should be exhausting every other method of accomplishing our goals before we're even thinking in those terms. I think it's utterly ridiculous to suggest otherwise.
Cause so much trouble, the empire is going to implode.
Right.
So that's really the story of the start of the modern day Labour Party. The party that Keir Starmer is in charge of now started as, well, the ruling class can kind of give the appearance that the workers are now involved in the process. Now you've got people in Parliament who used to be foremen in mines or working in a factory or something else. Okay, and so that is typically been the way that they are able to bring in. This is why it is containment, because they're not being overthrown. But don't forget, in that process, you're still getting something, right? If you're that worker who only has to work 8 hours a day as opposed to 15 hours a day, you got something for it. You won that through political struggle, right? You've got something for it, or I don't know. I mean, I hate this. If you're a woman, you're one of the suffragettes or something, now you've got to vote.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
Well, okay, so see, that's why I think she's kind of based, right? She like, if she gets upset at the concept of women voting, you're like, all right, that's novel. I like that. I think she means it. ZS Backs guy, my best there. Cool, no violence. So what else can you do? Vote, protest, or just lay down and let the invaders take over? Well, that's the thing. Voting and protesting are not the end. That's not the end of the list of options, right? It's like our government is obviously occupied. It's been infiltrated. Well, then that means it's possible, right? The machinations of our current system didn't happen by accident. They didn't happen because no one's at the stick. They happen because they're designed to happen this way. Well, that means that they can be designed to unhappen that way, right? Like a mass infiltration of the government. I mean, that's why I think Fuentes' solution is the only one that I've heard that has any real viability. This kind of long-term infiltration, hide your power level. And then, then there's groypers in your fucking wall. And all of a sudden you turn around and everybody's against your ideology. Everyone's on the same page. I think that is far more realistic and effective. Plus, it understands how the mechanisms of government and power work. It's not just like, oh boy, well, I can't, there's no one on the ballot for me to vote for. Well, that stinks. And if I go make my voice heard, no one gives a shit. And it's like, okay, but that's not the last thing. That's not the last thing that you can do. You can help in certain campaigns. You can acquire power and make a difference in your way. You can network with other people that think the way that you can. And that can be like one link in the chain. It's not just going to happen. Like, when did most people wake up and get this politically conscious? I'm 41. I'll tell you, this was not a widespread thing going on 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we were watching Peterson on Rogan and being like, oh, this is why all the chicks are acting weird. Most people are not that tapped in, man. We're all becoming more politically conscious and aware of the repercussions of our complete lack of consciousness. But that doesn't mean now that we're conscious, it's like, hey, we don't like it anymore. They're like, bitch, we don't give a fuck. So obviously we have to change. We have to change the way we've been approaching this. And that starts with being aware of the situations, understanding the actual levers of power, understanding how they work, understanding how they were infiltrated, understanding who they are, how you can get involved. It isn't just vote, protest, or die. Those are not the only options, man. I understand you're frustrated, but I just think if you're saying vote, protest, or go start a war, sorry, I'm just not on board with that idea. I feel like there's other solutions first before I'm willing to get myself killed, kill others, or risk the harm of my family or loved ones, okay? We're going to be serious about this. 10 years ago, I was watching The West Wing and probably being enthralled by their depiction of this noble president. You know what I mean? Junior Williams, kicking the can down the road. The government is too large to be subverted. Permanent government was never supposed to exist. It's anti-American, but here we are. Local or state changes, maybe. Well, look, the whole system, I mean, maybe it was a psyop from the beginning, but I think the whole system shuddered under the infiltration of Donald Trump the first time around, right? Well, the first time around, he was not supposed to get through those doors. He was not supposed to enter the halls of power. Total fluke, total anomaly to the whole system and the way it's run. And you saw the way they reacted. So it's possible. We see that there's an entry. There is a hole. And I'm not even saying president. I think it's more like understanding the machinations of power, really, and infiltrating those, or becoming powerful in your own community or your own network and starting there and building off of that. There's more. Like, politics isn't just what happens inside of an office. Politics happens in a lot of different ways. Politics happens in your fucking family, in your community. So that is the reasonable answer, but time is not on our side. No, yeah. I mean, look, we might all die not seeing the fruits of our labor. If that's the way it is, that's the way it is. Obviously, I don't want to live in that reality, but if in 100 years it paid off, look, I mean, we're still celebrating the founding fathers. It's 250 coming up. We're still talking about these guys' names they're glorious. And it's like, they did get to see the fruits of their labor, but I mean, their legacy carried on. So That's why you do it. We're going to die. We're all going to die. So if we died and we contributed to the return of the glory of the American system, great. That's a noble way to live your life. Text Bomber, half America can't even get out of their chair without being out of breath. Yeah, they're going to be storming the gates, all right. I mean, if you look at the J6 footage, right? Those clumsy fools, just the most like inept people trying to scale a wall. It's like, oh my God. Human being, blonde is very base. She's been around for a long time. Well, we were just discussing whether or not she's sincere or a LARPer. Like I said, I tend to believe she's sincere. I just think she's misguided. But I'd love to sit down with you, Rebecca. One of these days. Who's going to fight the overweight suicidal empaths that haven't seen what their D looks like their entire adult life? Fair. Yeah, fair. Probably not them, no.
You understand, right? It's still something, right? So the political process has given it's got something, or all right, you put it in you think in America, like, okay, so in the American case, all of these processes happened as well. It happened a little bit later on in the 40s and the 50s, but there were all sorts of things, right? I've said it before. Pat Buchanan's childhood, the white picket fences, the lovely 1950s America, everyone wants to get back to. But what about the antitrust laws that had to be fought for? What about the union rights? What about like all of those things had to be fought through? Like they had to fight for it. People had to go hungry. People had to struggle in order to get those concessions for the bastards that run the place. So
I understand, but all of this predates our forthcoming minority status in our previously homogenous nations, and it predates massive third world migration from completely disparate nations. So is the political process even relevant anymore? I mean, I'm sure I know you read.
See, but this is what I'm talking about, right? Like being a minority did not stop the Jews from running the whole goddamn government. They're like the smallest minority in the country, and they're some of the most powerful. Okay, their numbers were not the problem. It was their cunning, their nepotism, and their ruthlessness. That's how they were able to accomplish this shit. So if they can do it, obviously so can we. There's way more of us. You know what I mean? There's way more of us, and we're way more like widespread out. We don't have to isolate in certain pockets. Now, granted, look, it's not going to be easy. They're not going to go willingly. They're not going to be like, you got us. Yeah, we have been running your country into the ground for the past 80 years. Yeah, we were almost there. We almost had you. All right, back to Israel. No, obviously not. But like, this is what I'm thinking. It's just like, okay, so it's not going good for white people in the United States. The country is being irreparably changed. I guess we need to just start slaughtering people. Like, what, indiscriminately? Do you have targets? Do you have a battle plan? Is there like when do we win? When the White House is burning? Like, what are you even talking about? Like, I honestly don't understand. Like, I get being upset and emotional and frustrated. I get that. But really, think it through. How many guns do you own? Do you have body armor? Do you have like radio systems that you can communicate with multiple people? Do you even understand the most basic battle tactics? Do you know how to use a mortar? Like, what are we saying, guys? Come on. It's crazy. Maybe JD Vance is onto something. You just put your seed in the color of the future. Just invest in a different race. Just like I'm taking out futures on Indians. I don't know. Maybe. I own and operate an F-22 Raptor. Yeah, I got an M1 in my garage. I got an M1 Abrams in my garage. Probably needs an oil change. But other than that, tip top. 1 million permanent ensconced employees, staffers, congressional aides, law clerks, assistants flipping from one side of the aisle when their guy loses. They never leave, and they make policy, right, laws, rule. Yeah, no, I agree. The entrenched bureaucracy is the big problem. I thought, so naive when I think back on it, but I thought that was a big part of what the Trumpenreich was going to accomplish. I thought that's what their Doge was going to do. They were going to gut this bureaucratic state and strip it down to the bolts. I mean, how naive. But that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Because you discussed it on your channel, but Millennial Woe's Substack on Henry Nowak was so excellent. What are we going to do when not only we're the minority in our own nations, but all the systems that are there to serve and protect us are also white minority? I mean, we're going to have no political power, no opportunity to change things through political power. And then anything that we do that's going to achieve success is going to be extra systemic. That's going to be the only way. And that is coming down the pipeline faster than most people think. We can't even get a good number on what percentage of Americans are white. We don't really know, but I think it's probably sub 50 at this point.
Well, one of the things that Jonathan Bowden talked about many years ago.
That's a cynical estimation, but she might be correct. Cynical estimate. That may be accurate. I would tend to actually agree with her. You know, when you've got that guy, I forgot his name now. Not Greg Bovino saying that there were like 100 million illegals in the country. I think he's being hyperbolic, but I actually don't think he's being that hyperbolic. In fact, that is the thing I think Rebecca's onto there. I think she's right in the estimate that we're already a minority white country. Totally possible. I don't once again, very hard to get the actual numbers, but she might be right.
When he was still alive was, one of his famous speeches, he says, look, to a certain extent, when that happens, you're going to have to start playing the same games as everyone else, right? That is, it's basically white Al Sharpton.
Yeah, right? I'm fine with that.
It's white, right? So basically what you then end up with is white minority rights, so that you are just another group fighting for your piece of the pie amongst all the other groups. Right. I mean, and this is something.
Yeah. I mean, or we could just abolish the Civil Rights Act and get back to freedom of choice, freedom of association, so that we don't have to have like a white advocacy group. Like, we're like, hey, we have rights too. Like we could just organize without having to make it like a victim narrative, you know what I mean? Because it's like, I don't think that that's productive. I think it's like important to have like a white consciousness. I think it's important for us to think in those terms and have like Marzio was saying, like in-group preference. I think that's good. We should cultivate that, and I think we should definitely work every day towards stripping away the stigma around that. But creating like a victim class or a victim advocacy, fuck that gay shit. No way, man. No fucking way.
This country, I think Nick Griffin has talked about this, the former leader of the BNP and various other people, that eventually it will come to that. And there's a part of me that wonders about this Novak case, right? Where, because it's like I can't breathe. I was reviewing some leftist channels earlier on. There's this communist Indian girl, or woman now, called Ash Sakar. You've probably come across it at some point, right? Well, she was saying, do you know what? I think people should take the knee for Henry Novak. People should take the knee. And I was thinking, so there's the George Floyd, there's the I can't breathe. Now you've got leftists saying people should take the knee for this, right? Like they took the knee for George Floyd. And I'm thinking, like, well, if this is white George Floyd, are we just basically moving into a situation where you're getting white Al Sharpton?
Yes,
of course. Right. So, and then if that happens, like, are you happy with that?
I mean, I'm not happy with it, but
I'd also like to kind of pin down what they both mean by white Al Sharpton. Like, do you mean white advocacy, like a guy who's like that's his thing, like a white advocate? First of all, we kind of already have him. His name's Nick Fuentes. But do you mean a white race hustler? Like, are you concerned with the fact that like white race grifting is going to be a thing? And it's like, well, that already is a thing. It's called the Republican Party. It's called the GOP. So I'm not entirely sure what they mean by a white Al Sharpton. It's like, kind of, don't we already have that now? I don't know. Good night, Atlas. Thanks for hanging out with us, brother. As always, you know, you have a good one, pal. Have a good one, brother. Maurizio. That's what feels wrong about Rebecca. She has a doomer mentality. Otherwise, she's based on diagnosing the issues. Yeah, she does have a doomer mentality, you know, and I find that odd. Like I said, these are the types of things that I disagree with. I don't find them like exclusionarily objectionable or anything like that. Like, meaning like I'm not like, well, she's out, I won't even listen to her. It's like I just want to know why. I want to know where it comes from. Like, is it a mood? Is she just in a doomery mood recently? I don't know. I'd like to get into it with her though, because like I said, I think she's smart. I think she's insightful. I think she's brave. She says a lot of crazy shit on the internet, man. I give her credit for that. So I don't know. It's like, this is the type of stuff I'd like to, you know, pick her brain about. Tix Bomber, white people need to start studying trailer park tribalism. Take some notes. That's pretty funny. Yeah, you're probably right. You're right. It's going to be a tough sell for white libs. I've been, because I'm staying at my mom's place, you know, for the summer, and I've been working on that with her. She's like my test case, you know, because she's like a boomer lib, and she's got, you know, oh, but the brown people, you know, and with the immigrants and stuff, you know, and so I've been working on like trying to help contextualize like what this means, and sort of being like, hey, mom, like if you think, right, do you think that the next group, whether it's like Indians or Hispanics, like you think they're going to have like an egalitarian default like white people do? Do you think they're going to make concessions and room for you and your grandkids? Like, do you think that that's what they'll be working towards? It's like, I fucking don't. And, you know, when you start framing questions like that, when you start framing the conversation in those ways, like she would say to me, she'd be like, well, they can't vote. And I'm like, yeah, but their fucking kids will be able to. You know what I mean? And there's going to be a lot more of them than there are going to be of our kids. And then, you know, we're just demographically completely outvoted. So, no, it's a very serious problem. Blonde has a reality mentality? I don't know, man. I think we just dissected a lot of the things that she is completely delusional about.
If reverting to tribalism is going to retain white majorities in our own nations, you know, I'll do what it takes. If we have to get in the mud here, then I'm fine with that. I'm not going to allow the extinction of my people because I don't want to fight dirty. My principles are not more important than that. So anything that needs to be done, it needs to be done at any cost.
Interesting. Well, yeah, you see, theoretically, I can see it, but
that's also easier to say than it is to do, right? At any cost. It's like, really? So, you know, like if you study any of these violent revolutions that happened, you know, even this one, even the United States, but I mean like any, like the Russian Revolution, like the horrific shit that those people went through and the aftermath and the mass killings and the way people died. Like if you look into any of that stuff, it's like you're willing to risk that. You're willing to go through that. That doesn't matter. You won't even blink when there's just like piles of rotted bodies that can't be buried. Like you're cool with that because it's that important to you. It's like, maybe you mean it, but I mean, living that, when you get on the other side, like what do you even have? You know, you've gone through such demoralizing hell. You'll never be the same. Was that all just sacrifice for the next generation? It seems, let's exhaust the other options before we go there. How about that? That's my perspective. Let's figure out if there's another way first. Rebecca does a weekly show with Cameron McGregor on Thursday. Vincent James used to be part of the show. Great show. Yeah, I watched the one with Cameron. I haven't watched The Outlaws. You know, so much content, and I try to cast a broad net, especially now that I'm doing this show, which is like the weekly roundup. Like I don't miss a Fuentes episode, and there's a few other people I don't really miss what they do, but other than that, I try to check in with a lot of other people. Tix Bomber, I love them talking about assimilation. Hey, mom and dad, they've had the same amount of time to assimilate as you've existed on Earth. They don't speak English after 60 years. Assimilated, dude. That is the thing that drives me the most fucking nuts about foreign people is the lack of speaking the language. I find that to be so incredibly fucking rude. I went to Mexico a few months ago, went down to Tulum, and I don't speak Spanish, but I was making the effort out of respect, out of the respect of being in a different country, you know, and the fact that this is a Spanish-speaking nation. I was making the effort to try to speak my shitty Spanish because it's respectful. You're going to move here and you're not even going to bother with conversational, thank you, you're welcome, how are you doing? None of that? Bro, fuck you. That's so fucking rude. That's just so fucking rude and disrespectful. And that's the type of stuff that like really boils my piss. And yeah, those are good examples. You know, it's like you do have to do a lot of shattering of like the liberal mythology on like, you know, people over a certain age, man, because it's ingrained. It's ingrained in how they think, you know? All right. Wow, we're almost at an hour and a half already. All right, we're going to have to start moving on to another. We'll play a little bit more of this, and then we're going to move on to Joey, because that's really the one I want to focus on. I also have Provoked with Cooper and what's his name, Scott Horton, but I think I want to focus more on the right-wing coalition because let's watch this, and I'll tell you why I like it so much.
You know, I look at the history of civil rights in America, and you know the real history of civil rights. And, you know, it's not just Martin Luther King speeches, right? I mean, I've got all these Thomas Sowell books here. I mean, they smashed the place up. Mm-hmm. They basically burnt the place down in the 60s, like burnt Detroit. Like what I'm saying is the civil rights movement got its way basically through violence back in the day. They were violent. And it was kind of, and then we basically.
All right, I feel like we this one's got as far as it can go for today. But you know, Academic Agent's great. Look, and I still like Rebecca. This isn't me talking shit about Rebecca. I want to make that clear because I like her. We talk offline, you know, or you know, whatever, off stream and stuff. And I think she's a good person. I think she means well. I think her heart's in the right place. I just think some of these more extreme ideas, I'm like, let's fucking pump the brakes a little. You know, let's talk about this a little bit. But and I'd like to talk about that, Rebecca. I'm still putting it out there. Come on the MFR podcast. All right. So, but this was a conversation that I really liked, and shout out Craig Butler, shout out Elite Groiper, for keying me into it because I don't know these guys, FroJax. I don't know them. I think they're brothers and they do this show together. But this is the type of shit that I really like. Like, I really like this cutting edge, really hashing it out amongst people of similar mind and having these kind of like really compelling, interesting conversations with a lot of different dynamics. This is the type of shit that I love listening to. I get completely engrossed in these types of conversations, especially from, you know, these based young guys. Like, I don't know how many of you guys in the chat are like Gen Z, but like I was saying at the top of the show, I found it just so interesting how politically tapped in that generation is. Like how based they are and organized, and they have these like their principles are like categorized and they can defend them and they have like the information. And I was like blown away by this. I don't think my generation is that tapped in. You know, I'm sure that there are members of it, but millennials, no, we don't. We're like the kind of generational orphans, right? We're not boomers. Like, we don't really subscribe to that, but we did get a healthy dose of boomer propaganda, but a lot of it wore off because it's like, oh, well, when the rubber met the road, so much of that was utter bullshit. So I think a lot of my generation has just sort of tapped out, you know, just not really partaking in it. They're like in the middle age of their life. So they're raising their kids and they're focusing on that stuff. I don't know if you guys know of any like based millennials, let me know. But I feel like right now the guys leading the charge are the Gen Z guys. And I think they're doing a great job. So we're going to get into this conversation a little bit. And I think that this was really cool. Like I said, I don't know these FroJax fellas, but I liked what I heard on this one. I don't share all their worldview and their beliefs, but they had some good stuff. So this first one's about kind of like the nature of power.
A viable option. I veered more into, okay, well, you know, to even draw from what Kevin is saying with power being downstream from identity, power is not arbitrary. Our ideas of power are like, you know, the fake Hollywood nonsense, like a tyrant that has no no motive besides like making people suffer, that's very rare, actually. And when you realize that power will be exerted by somebody, if you're right wing, the hierarchy will exist. And once you come to terms with the fact
that was what academic agent Neema got into with his book, the Populist Delusion. That's precisely the thesis of that there aren't really these sort of populist things. They tend to be more top down than even the ones that seem like they're organized by the masses coming together. They're not. It's usually like a coordinated small group, and that power exists. It's like a law of nature. It's like an element that you can either harness it or you can let it go to someone else. But it is a thing that exists, and coming to grips with that, understanding that is a really important like early step in being like this politically active, right? Everyone's talking about, well, what are the solutions? What are the solutions? That's a pretty big one. That's a pretty big one. It's to understand exactly what it is we're even engaging in here. What are our goals? Like who does hold the, like what is the nature of power? Like how is it used and how is it executed? So I would recommend reading that book. Like I said, short book, but this is exactly what Joey's getting into.
Like that hierarchy will exist. It's a combination.
Tix Bomber, this guy's hair always messes with me. Oh, that's Right Wing Coalition, by the way. That's Joey on the right. I don't know if you guys aren't familiar. Great YouTube channel. Wrote the book, American History Z. Is that it? What is it? Yeah, American History Z. And he said his hair always messes with me. It somehow looks both fake and real. To me, it looks like to me like those busts of like Roman, not to glaze, but those like Roman, like Mark Antony or something like that. That's how it looks to me, because the way it looks like the hair just kind of sits. It looks like looks like a bust of Caesar or something like that. Not to glaze.
Between Pericles saying like you may not have an interest in politics, but politics will take an interest in you. And I think it was Thucydides basically or perhaps Plato that said, and I'm not some like crazy scholar. I mean, these are just a few quotes.
Sure.
But where he said like, deciding not to rule, like your biggest punishment will be being ruled by people inferior to you. So once I understood that somebody is going to wield that power, it's almost like,
how fucking based is that? When I heard him say this the other day, I was like, that has stuck with me as like a failure in my life, right? Like I worked in hospitality for a long time, but I never really wanted to step into leadership. I never really wanted to step into management because it's kind of a shit job, and it's like the hours suck, and it's, it's not, you don't make that much more money. It's kind of better to be like a bartender, which I was, fucking good one, by the way, just so you know, just so you little fucks out there know. But it was, I always ended up getting led by these inferior people. Like on occasion I'd have decent leaders, but generally, man, it was just the weakest, like incompetent, selfish, petty. And that quote of like refusing to rule will force you to be ruled by inferior, of like, oh my God, that is so fucking true, man. That has really, really stuck with me. Hell yeah, AI world champion. Let's fucking go. That I was like, damn, and he's right. That is, and I know it's a famous ancient quote, but still, man, it's like to carry that concept around, that's yes, bro. Yes.
Deciding not to rule, like your biggest punishment will be being ruled by people inferior to you. So once I understood that somebody is going to wield that power, it's almost like you are forced to enter that realm of, okay, whether I take it myself, I want to be part of a faction that is moving towards something that I agree with broadly. And so that's kind of, the sequence of how, I mean, kind of more abstractly, but I could certainly go into greater detail if you guys want, but
absolutely. I mean, we have a very similar story. For me personally, I think I had a very similar experience to you, and there were different milestones along that way that created certain epiphanies that I had, largely involving realizations about power. And so I was reading libertarian economic material when I was like 14 or 15. Now, I was really a libertarian up until age 25, and even back during COVID.
Such a common story for like libertarianism is like a stepping stone. And I don't know if I'm telling tales out of school here. Maybe she wouldn't like if I said this, but privately, Rebecca admitted as much to me. She used to be a libertarian, right? And I still have virtue for and kind of an affection for the libertarians, like the real ones, like the good ones, Tom Woods, Scott Horton, stuff like that. But I do think it is a stepping stone for so many people. It's like it's your first kind of breaking out of the matrix. This sort of like, well, what if there wasn't either one in power? This kind of like, you're bargaining. It's like the bargaining state of accepting becoming a fascist. It's like the first step, like the first stage in grief. But it's such a common story, Tix Bomber, you get fired a lot easier for like $5,000 more per year being management in a lot of places. True. I mean, that's the thing. That's why it never appealed to me, because it's just like, oh, then you just become like the punching bag, right? You're just like now you're just getting shit from everyone. You're getting shit from ownership, getting shit from staff. It just seemed awful. But I have conviction, probably in places I shouldn't, but I have conviction about the way things should go. I'm passionate about that. And when things don't go those ways, I get very frustrated. And it's not in some sort of selfish, narcissistic way. It's like in an optimization way. And it's better for everybody if we do it like this. But then you just get ruled by these incompetent fucks. And it's crushing for me. But it was something I never stepped up into. And now I'm reflecting on that after he said that, being like, damn, yeah, that's true, man. You just get led by weaker leaders. Like, oh, God, so true. Maurizio. Yep, we are governed by idiots. Having Congress people like AOC is a consequence of our brainwashing to relinquish power. True, dude. Very, very true. Based. I think that's accurate. It is this, and it was like this, like, oh, wanting power for power's sake is like this sin. And, it can be, you know what I mean? Look, I've certainly known people who like that was their goal, was to accomplish power, and then they immediately became tyrants. So it's like those people, and that characteristic should be avoided. It should be avoided in yourself as well. Like you should be like a benevolent authoritarian, right? Like, but the idea of wanting power as being this sort of like this gross thing, or this like kind of like unsavory quality, I actually think you're right. Is like we've been brainwashed to believe that, while our enemies are scrambling for it. Joey said something else in the book that I thought was really sharp. He says that the left, like Democrats and such, like AOC, like they crave power. I think he was quoting somebody, but regardless, they crave power like an alcoholic, whereas the right and the GOP kind of crave alcohol like a wine snob. Like there's a more sophisticated approach to it, where the Dems and left, they don't care. Just give me power. Power doesn't fucking matter. And it's true. It's like, I think that's been the both kind of political perspectives relationship to power. And this new perspective of like, no, we need to seize power, otherwise it'll be seized by the worst people, is a novel concept. And like, you're right, we need to get out. We need to relinquish the brainwashing. I think these guys are gay. I think they're brothers. I believe that they are brothers. So I don't know. Let just one Jedi take care of the universe. Based. Let's fucking go. This line by Francis Underwood, FRP, House of Cards, pushed me to get involved in local politics. Money is the McMansion in Sarasota that starts falling apart after 10 years. Power is the old stone. Ooh, the old stone building that stands for centuries. I cannot respect someone who does not see the difference. That is fucking based as hell. That's based as hell. Yeah, Fuentes a few weeks ago said, or I saw a clip of him or whatever, just said watch House of Cards to like understand it. I was surprised to hear him say that. Maybe it's worth a revisit. I think I watched it when it came out, but I'm sure I didn't reflect on the kind of deeper political philosophy in it. So I guess it's worth checking out again. It's been so long. Harvard grad that broke down in a cooler because she didn't know the difference between tap and sparkling water. Yeah, I mean, dude, it's so weird too. Like working with women, like them crying is just it's just part of it. They cry, and you just have to sort of roll with it. Not all of them. And I have worked with some fucking badass chicks. You know what I mean? I really have, who are fucking really good at their job, dialed in, reliable, consistent. But yeah, there are a lot of chicks where it's just crying is just part of the job. It's just like, I don't know. You're like, okay. They can be brothers, doesn't mean they ain't gay. That's fair. They were musicians for a while. Maybe that's what you're picking up on. Their kind of fruity artist vibe. I don't really know. I don't know these guys. This is the first. My first encounter is this stream. Is this this conversation they had with Joey.
While I was still more of like a classical liberal kind of thinker, I, similar to you, wasn't internalizing that anti-white rhetoric. I wouldn't accept it. And I used to think that it was on the basis of me just having an aversion to people coming together in a sort of collectivist hive mind sort of way. Very similar to your story. I was a hard-hearted individual. I believe that everything had to stem out of that without realizing that individualism has really only existed for like a couple hundred years, right? And it was Europeans that largely incorporated that into society. But I remember my brother and I were the only two people in our broader friend circle that didn't post that black square on Instagram and social media during the George Floyd riots.
And we got a lot of shit for it too.
And we got a lot of stuff for it, and we didn't back down. And, you know, we weren't super well known back then, but we had a broad circle because we've been musicians for a very long time. And in the music scene, it's very left leaning. It's very aggressive. It's very decentralized. And you have to go along with the hive mind. And I always felt the inclination to go against the grain in that way, but I didn't quite understand that it was all built upon the foundation of identity. I just didn't get it yet. And I think that's also part of,
you know, what's funny about that black square thing on Instagram. That would be a thing that would happen quite a bit. There wasn't, obviously the black square had the most pressure of anyone that had come prior, but I remember probably in like the year 2013, maybe around then. Yeah, probably 2012, 2013. There was some gay marriage thing. I was living in LA at the time, you know, obviously. So my circle, the sample set is not representative of the country, but there was some gay marriage thing. Everybody was putting like the equality thing in their bio. And I remember that. And there was like, it was different. Like the social political pressure hadn't reached that height just yet, but I do remember that being a thing. And there's an episode of Seinfeld, if you've ever seen the show from years ago, where they want him to wear the AIDS ribbon. And it becomes this really tense thing that he doesn't want to wear the AIDS ribbon. He's like, I don't want to wear the ribbon. Like, why don't you want to wear the ribbon? What? And it gets all antagonistic. It's all played for laughs, but it's like a mechanism of that kind of the progressives. It is a mechanism, this sort of grand social pressure and attacks under the guise of being virtuous. And it's like, you know, it made me think of that when they were talking about the black square. It's like that meme. It's like, oh, first time, you know, first time you felt the social pressure to post convictions you don't really have out of fear. I thought that was interesting. All right, we're going to move on to a different clip, which I don't quite remember, but I marked it down as boomer system worship. So let's listen to this.
Its own accord, but even if all it does is shatter the force field around these ideas, and it'll
the ribbon bullies. Yeah, absolutely. That was the episode. Yeah.
Allows the next generation or whatever to not have this allergy that certainly the preceding generations have. That will be a pretty significant success, because if we're still, you know, I mean, I saw this out of Nigel Farage with the Henry Novak murder. You know, he says in his video, he says kind of all the right things, but at the very end, he basically goes, and he even addresses, like, you know, the anti-white stuff needs to go, but he reverts back to, and this is why we need like a colorblind meritocracy, and that spell still is binding, you know, and you just have to get rid of that, and that's, I mean, I know it seems so obvious once you're kind of inoculated with these ideas, but like individual, even collective preference.
These millennial political YouTubers all sound the same. I don't know if you're talking about the guys on the screen, because neither one of those guys are, none of those guys are millennials. They're all Gen Z. They're all in their 20s. I am the millennial political YouTuber perhaps in this, and I sound the same As who? Who am I doing as a thing that's similar to? As another millennial? No idea what you're talking about, bro. No idea what you're talking about. Oh, he could be Jay Burden or any one of those Chris Rufo types. Yeah, those are all Gen Z, dude. You're out of touch. Those guys are all I'm a millennial. I'm 41. I'm a millennial. These guys are in their 20s. Those are Gen Z. Now, I don't think they sound the same. I think they share similar principles, but like, what's his name? Joey's done Jay Burden's show. Like, of course, there's going to be some overlap there, but like, you're not considering all those fucking fruity, Democrat adjunct, or not adjunct, apparatchiks. There's a lot of these like queefs out there. There's like, if you're right wing, right, or in that, or even mildly, like your algorithm's going to reflect that. But there's a whole other ecosystem of leftist pukes out there. Like there's a guy, I don't know if he's a Gen Z or he's a millennial, but his name's Chris Citarella, I think, and he does a podcast called Doom Scroll. And he's like a big lefty. There's a lot of different voices. Oh, not you, the Right Wing Coalition guy. Okay, yeah. I don't know, dude. Joey's smart. I read his book. I've talked to him a few times, like, a few different episodes I've done with him. I watch his videos. To me, he does not sound like anyone else. Like, he's a very intelligent thinker. And he's precise in a lot of ways that not everyone is. I don't know.
Does not, for one thing, does not necessarily allocate hate to something else, right? Like you can be individually prideful of, whites as a collective without being hateful of the out group. And, that's actually one thing that I don't know if you guys listened to the full Jared Taylor interview, but that's one thing he talked about, which is basically like trying to explain that, these ideas are actually fairly benign once you get past like the liberal reflexes and things like that. Benign in the sense that they don't ultimately lead to something catastrophic by their own nature. They have like almost self-limiting principles within them. They would have to be corrupted afterward to actually go to something, that took it in a direction that's particularly unpalatable.
Yes. 100%. Well, the real difference is that white people are the ones that are attempting to and have been attempting to for quite some time now to play by the rules of a colorblind meritocracy while everybody else is working as collectives. But
that's a huge thing that needs to be observed. I imagine a lot of y'all out there, excuse me, in this chat are probably already hip to that. But that is something that I think is a very important tool, like instrumental in changing political consciousness, is to understand it's like, yeah, man, you might not want to do that. You might find it distasteful, but guess what? Everyone else is doing it. And we are losing because we are not, because we don't see ourselves as a collective, but every other group does. Every other group does. And they take political action accordingly. And if, you're even mildly interested in keeping this thing afloat or reverting it back to, or, having a new future, a good vision for the future, a new American vision, if you will, then you have to get on board with that because it's the truth. It's the truth. And it doesn't need to be so tribalistic. It doesn't need to be, we take on everybody and every single, chud who's vaguely on our side, we protect viciously. I don't think we need to do that. I think that would be a huge misstep. But it does, the truth is we do need to start seeing the world that way because look, even if you don't want to, everyone else does, man.
Great irony is that individualism as a philosophy and as a sort of political strategy exists because of the greatest version of collectivism, which is European. That's really where individualism comes from. So that's the great irony, but that also helps one realize that individualism necessarily can't be the starting point because we come from collectives as people. And you also made a very important point there about the notion of hate. When people start talking about identity politics on the right wing, they have a very emotional knee-jerk reaction to when white people start collectivizing because of historical grievances. But I share your observation in that you don't have to start from a point of hatred. It isn't a fundamentally hateful ideology to care about your nation or believe in nationalism. That is the way that our
based. And also, I was thinking about it too, right? Because this is, to be completely transparent, this is stuff I'm coming to grips with as well. Like I'm having like a political transformation over the past year. Ever since it was it became clear that Trump was a fraud, Like, I got much more serious about all this. Like, I've realized, okay, there's no one coming to save us. There is no cavalry. I need to be way more informed and way more up on this and absorb these ideas. So I'm like working through it, right? Like a little bit, but that was something that I was coming to grips with, where it's like, well, they're going to, you know, they wrestling with like white supremacy. It's like, well, I'm not a supremacist. It's not like I fucking want to kill anyone or get rid of other people or cleanse, but I'm like an advocate. I'm like an advocate for this thing. And then Joey had a conversation with Jared Taylor, and that's exactly what Jared Taylor says. It's the same thing. It's like advocacy. It's not hate. It doesn't have to be hate or supremacy. It's like just advocating for your people, your family, your lineage, your history, your religion. You're advocating for those things. That's not a bad thing. That's actually like a really righteous, correct, healthy point of view to have, especially in the times we live in where it's under threat, clearly. And you can see it most acutely in what's going on in Europe, right? You're seeing like these are the ancestral homelands of Europeans and white people, and they are being like gutted. Like I saw this thing online about some island in Italy where the amount of African migrants that live there now exceeds the native population on this little island. And you're just like, yeah, okay, so that's not the same fucking country anymore, right? You know, like if millions of Africans come and transform the culture of Italy, like, well, it's not going to be fucking Italy anymore. Like, are they going to carry on the prosciutto, you know, like the culture and the artisan nature of like curing prosciutto or good cheese or good wine? Are they even capable of doing it? I read about this pasta, I think it was in like the north of Italy in like Piedmont, that like these women make. It's like this very difficult process. Only like a few dozen people know how to do it. And it's attached to this Christian pilgrimage. It's really beautiful stories in the New York Times. It's pretty cool. But like, you know, it's like, are they going to carry on that tradition? Is that going to continue on? Or is Italy not going to be Italy anymore? It's like obviously the latter. They're going to bring whatever bullshit they come with. And then that'll be that. It's like these things, it's like that is just logically consistent. That's how that will go, obviously. You know what I mean? Like, are we going to get the next Fendi out of Africa? Probably not, bro. Like, probably not. All right, dude. This fucking guy. Dak. I don't know. I agree with that. I got off the Trump train the day after the election in 2016 when he said we don't have to lock her up. Oh, I'm talking about Trump too. I was so naive. I was trusting the plan. I was a total clown. Fell for it again awards. Just, you know, dump them here, man. I had no idea. I was so out of the loop of what's really going on politically. Completely out of touch. So, you know, that just being transparent. Please don't unsubscribe. Zizbakske. As a Hungarian, I can tell you what created that collectivism. It's the invasion of Islam over centuries, and only the sword stopped it. The Crusades, bro. Based. But it's fundamentally incompatible with Western civilization, obviously. Obviously. You're seeing it now. You know, you see it where like they want to call to prayer. It was like, imagine how radically that changes a town or a city. When that's, you know, even if it's not, people aren't actively Christian, they're de facto Christian. They're like default, like that's their foundation. Now you're playing, like that changes the entire culture. It's also sending a message of who's in power. It's just crazy that there's like arguments against this. And when people do start arguing against it, that's when you're like, you are nefarious, aren't you? You know, this is a malicious action you're undertaking.
Our ancestors and people throughout all of human history have been operating since the beginning of time, all the way throughout ancient history and even prehistory. It's really only white people that are expected not to do that. And, you know, we can talk endlessly and complain about the racial double standard that has been foisted upon us, but I think the uncomfortable truth here that some people may not want to say out loud is that when white people choose to ditch meritocracy and start acting in accordance with their broader collective racial group, that's very intimidating to a lot of people, right? Because
it's also counterintuitive to the way many of us were raised. You know, it doesn't feel natural to behave that way. Like I still do value merit and virtue. And when I was like, for a while, I used to run a catering company. And when I did hire people, I was colorblind about it. I didn't give a shit as long as you were the person who could do the job well. That's what I needed. I wanted people that I didn't have to micromanage. I could just give you the task and you would do it and I didn't have to worry about it. So I was like that. And so it's like, and I think of that as a virtue. Like I think of that as a good thing, that I was more concerned with like who you are as an individual, your merit. So it's contradictory to like the way we were raised and like what we would consider virtuous, for many people. So it's like to say that, to be like, oh, well, we need to start. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's a bit of a chore. That's a bit of an uphill battle, because it's like, yeah, you basically have to be petty a little. And it's like, man, that's a tough one. That's a tough one to hear.
People on some level, I mean, we have the majority of billionaires. We have the majority of capital. Well, in America, maybe. There's a lot of Jews. Okay, maybe not. But look, there's a lot of.
I think we're still like 70% of the billionaires. Are we not?
Of course. I mean, I'm just saying, like, per capita.
Per capita, certainly not. Per capita will not strike again.
Not per capita, but I mean, in this instance, the flow of human capital doesn't matter. But the main difference is that a lot of successful white people still behave as individuals. And so I think that if we can see a sort of identity-based centralization of those resources, we can kind of begin to push the tide back in the other direction.
Yeah, that's like a white pill I've been beginning to sort of like
I would also say it's probably easier for other groups to organize on the basis of identity inside of a country where they're the minority. It's probably a lot easier. Like look what happened, right? When Trump won, right? The right wing was pretty much united. Obviously the dissidents and the people who saw it for what it was, like Fuentes and the people who could pierce through the veil and see the truth of what the Trump administration was going to be, they're excluded. But they were a very small population at the time. But the right wing, we were so united in defeating woke, right? We had to just, this whole Biden administration was such a sham. We needed to be bonded and win this battle. It was very, very important. And then immediately, once we started winning, the infighting begins, right? Then the purity test, and they start stripping off the actual, like the nativists and the really America First people. It's like you just completely, slice it off, right? It's like, and then you start to see, oh, well, this is actually the core of this whole thing, isn't it? But it's like when you've got a broad coalition, right? If you're fighting against something, it's easier to organize like around that identity. Whereas like, obviously the numbers are going down, but still like the United States of America, like broadly white. I mean, you see there's still like cultural infighting amongst people who live in cities and people who live in the country, and they don't really feel all that connected, right? It's like we're talking about a very broad population to start now identifying on this one characteristic. It's like, I'm not saying it's impossible. I think it's the type of thing we, can work towards, but it is this thing where it's like, yeah, it's a lot easier to organize in your minority status when there's only, when you're 2% of the population, 13% of the population, 5%. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier to do that because it's like, well, there's less of you. You kind of have to. There's like an obligation to do it. And sort of pushing that against like a broadly, it's like, I don't always feel that way. I don't always feel like I have an immediate connection with white people. I'm starting to feel that like a little bit more, but it's like, that's just not how it is. It's not how it was. It's going to be how it's going to have to be. But I don't know. Like I said, these are things that many people are going to wrestle with, and it's important to understand why.
With is like when you realize this strangle.
I'm going to move on to a different clip. I think wait, what is he going to say?
Hold this disproportionate stranglehold that Jewish oligarchs have on our nation and a lot of other places. It almost seems like an insurmountable obstacle. But hypothetically, all
right, so they're talking about the kind of like Zog machine or whatever, but no, like, shit, I lost my fucking thought. All right, let's move on. Oh, yeah, I remember, because I thought what they were going to talk about was boomer system worship. I must got the wrong time code, or maybe it's later, whatever. But the point I wanted to make was this thing that happens, right? Like, they look at these institutions like they're holy. Like when you would hear the hysterical meltdown over the Department of Education being eliminated, it's like that was under Carter. I was like, that's not like that. It wasn't part of the founding documents. It wasn't even part of like the New Deal. That was in the fucking 70s and 80s. Like that's a new concept. And this like USAID thing that they were getting rid of. It's like that was invented in like the 80s as well. These are not like long-standing traditions and institutions we're talking about getting rid of. They're just government bureaucracies. It's not that we could slice them and get a new one. It's not that big of a fucking deal. But the boomers do look at these systems. Man, I wish I had that clip in here. I must have just time coded it wrong, but they do have this kind of like, no, if it's part of it's like, it's sacred now. It's part of the government. It's an institution. It's sacred. And it does, it gets a little bit of it. So let's go a little bit further. I hope I time coded this one correctly. Yeah. Okay. I have this down as Wignat versus Christianity. I think this is an important conversation, especially with what we're getting into. Tix Bomber, city folk are practically aliens to me. See? That's what I'm talking about. And there is like a distance. I'll tell you, when I moved to Texas, I was like a little bit like, unsure because it's like a dramatically different culture. I've lived in like progressive cities my entire life. I've lived, and Austin, I mean, could I have had a softer landing? But it's a different culture. It's like a different, we grow up, like we live and coexist, but it's like there is these are giant divides, in people and just the way that you live. And I mean, like, where I am now is like kind of like the country of like New York. But it's just the cultures are different. We really don't have that like, oh, you're a fucking white, city living liberal. I'm a white, farmer or whatever. We're the same. It's just like people, this is not how, like, there are going to be other cultural gaps we're going to have to get over. That's why seeing Pride going down with support is alarming. Are you sad that there's not as many Pride parades this year, this June, this Pride month? Oh, I'm sorry, Zibakski. That's too bad. Yeah, I guess there were less, huh? I know what you mean. I'm fucking with you. It suggests the second stage of revolution exactly like like in Russia 100 years ago. Bro, I hope not, man. Anything I ever read about that is just an absolute fucking nightmare. The communist feels they do not the minority anymore and get bloody. Yeah, well, okay, I see what you're saying. Kind of like they're pressed up against a wall and then they get desperate and it gets really ugly. Yeah. I miss when a rainbow could just be a rainbow. You know who enlightened me to this one? It was Ari Shafir, the Jewish comedian. He did a special called Jew, and he talked about after in the Bible, right after the flood, right after like the big flood with Moses on the ark and all that, God showed a rainbow to like say that it was like all okay now that they cleansed the wickedness, and then he suggested that they use that rainbow as like a middle finger to God. And I was just like, holy shit, that might actually be fucking true. Right? If you think about it, it's like, because they hate Christianity. They hate what it preaches, and I was like, damn, that might be spot on, Ari. I never even thought about that. You're in Lake Placid. I'm not I can't call myself a New Yorker. I grew up in New Jersey. I just moved here from Austin to be with family. But, I'm in like the Hudson area, like that's all I really fucking know, like the Hudson area. Berserkert. Austin is nowhere near the same as it was 20, 30 years ago. 90% of the people aren't from Texas. Was that it wasn't like that? Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean so many of the people I knew in Austin were not from Texas. Lots of transplants. It became a trendy city. It became a cool, hot city to move to. I wasn't from Texas, obviously, all the big cities in Texas are cooked. Yeah, I like them though, I mean, I'm not crazy about Houston, but I found some cool stuff in San Antonio. And like Dallas, I didn't love, but I found like I like the artsy neighborhoods. Like I like the, like Deep Ellum and shit. I like that stuff, and I don't think it needs to be colonized exclusively by fucking screeching progressive liberals, okay? I don't. I really think that this is like an important point to me, and I think it happens a lot with like what we're going to talk about, like the Wignats, like the kind of like, I'm dumb and that's okay kind of thing. Like when people make fun of like millennials or city people for like their lattes or their craft beer and stuff like that, I get a little, I bristle at that because what are those things? What is like a latte, like an artfully created coffee, or like a craft beer or fine wine or any of that? Those are the fruits. That's the excellence that the European society created, trying to be recreated here in the United States. I fucking hate coffee culture, by the way. I don't care where it comes from. I fucking find all that annoying. But that's like the excellence of like Italy and France, right? Craft beer is emulating like the excellence out of the German beer scene. Like that's, even the big breweries that are in the United States all have their origins from like German immigrants who came and like started like beer brewing. So like all that stuff that they're doing, they're trying to emulate the excellence of European culture. I don't think there's anything virtuous in just poo-pooing all that and be like, haha, fags, It's like, no, I just actually firmly disagree. I think you're embracing the excellence of European culture when you partake in stuff like that. That's what I think. Eric Von K. Classlessness is not something to be proud of. A lot of pro-whites and Wignats think that being a country bumpkin is something to celebrate. Or like being unsophisticated is somehow a virtue. Like I used to work at this beer bar in North Austin. It's not there anymore, but we had like 90 drafts, right? And I didn't know all that much about beer. Like I knew enough about like wine, food, spirits and stuff like that. But when it came to beer, I kind of had like a narrow understanding. So I like dove in to like learn all this stuff. And it's really fascinating. Like the history is really fascinating. But then these guys would come in and they'd be like, they would like, like mock the whole concept. It's like, oh, well then why are you here, motherfucker? Like what, you could go to any bar and get a fucking shitty Miller Lite, you unsophisticated boob. Like I don't think that's virtuous. I think it's actually way more virtuous to like explore these nuances and stuff. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. That's fine. I don't get coffee culture. I fucking hate it. I'm a drip coffee guy. I don't need espresso and lattes and all that. I find it all so unnecessary. I can't stand it. But that doesn't mean like, I don't look down on the people who do care about it. Like I understand sophistication in other ways. So yeah, that always bothers me. That's one of these things I think like, we need to reject. I mean, look, if that's who you want to be, it's who you want to be. But I don't think it's like, oh, I'm a chud on the right, therefore I drink the shittiest beer and have absolutely no culinary sophistication or artistic sophistication whatsoever. I flat out reject that. Absolutely not. Tix Bomber, our coffee culture is just ass coffee drowned in sugar and whipped cream. Do you mean out in the country? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't like bad coffee either, though. I find that just as repulsive. Like, I like just well-brewed, drip coffee, good beans. You know what I mean? Like, nothing nuts, nothing fancy, but not shit either. But we do have, like, in the cities, we have, like, really sophisticated, if you ever go to, like, Seattle, oh, my God, they treat it like it's a religious ceremony. Like, I went into one place, I was visiting my buddy out there, and the guy was like such a pretentious dickhead. I'm like, I just want a cup of coffee, bro. You know what I want. Stop forcing me through this sieve to participate in your little fucking shitty enclave here that I have no regard for. Coffee is also the only reason the USA wasn't addicted to meth like the rest of the world. Well, I don't know anything about that, but that's interesting. All right, let's listen to this a little bit.
List colorblind meritocracy that's actually leached its way into the symbology of really white religiousness, because that's what Christianity is. It's white people being good people. Because you go to anywhere else in the world, and even if they're self-identified Christian, they're not the same. Like they're just distinct from Europeans or American white Christians. That's a big problem, because a lot of these conversations we've had with whether it's boomers, whether it's non-white people, the problem is with white people that get everything, like our cousin or friends in our circle who are.
Hey, I'm not saying don't respect your farmers, and I'm not saying I treat everyone with respect, and I think that's incredibly important. I think that's one of the best things that comes out of European and white cultures, treating people with fucking respect and dignity. I think that's super huge and super important. I'm not saying disrespect them. I'm just saying when people take pride in being unsophisticated, I find that gross. I'm just like, you don't have to virtue it. You don't have to care about it. It doesn't have to be a virtue of yours. But when you take like pride in it, you like look down at others who like do care about excellence. It's like, bro, we're not on the same page on that at all. I meant coffee culture in the USA as a whole. The overwhelming majority likes overpriced crap coffee. Yeah, I mean, I guess they like their Starbucks, fucking, milkshakes or whatever. Yeah, but there's like I just feel like it comes a lot of the times from like these sort of like a Matt Walsh type or something, you know, these sort of right wing, like, I'm just a man, I'm simple, I just care about this. It's like, okay, well, you're unsophisticated, man. I think that there's, you know, it's like, and that's fine, whatever, be unsophisticated, but it's not a virtue.
Are young and they get every single problem that we've just spoken about, and they would agree with everything leading up to this point. Well, there still is something that exists outside of the observable laws of nature that's accounting for making this universalism actually something that's possible. They're latching onto this desperately. I think that also has to be destroyed. And I don't believe, I'm not one of those like CQ, Christ cuck, anti-Christian people. I think that those people are also wrong, and I can get into that. But we're not anti-Christian, but we are anti-universalism, because universalism will destroy us. It absolutely will, and it's one of the biggest problems. So I guess I wanted to ask you, do you agree with that? What do you think, and what are your religious beliefs, and how do you reconcile all that stuff?
Well, I honestly think Aquinas' Ordo Amoris really takes care of that. I don't think that you need to, like, I think the universalism is a kind of a bastardization of the it's like the turn the other cheek thing that's like twisted.
To love thy neighbor. It's like
cowards. But I don't think that it necessarily, like, I do believe that you can still make the claim that all people have equal dignity without saying that all people are deserving of equal treatment. And just like a parent of their biological child is, you know, should love that child more than the neighbor's kid. But that doesn't mean necessarily that there's, like, you know, hate allocated to the neighbor's kid. And it doesn't even mean that there aren't necessarily obligations, but there is a ladder of obligations.
Yeah, it's a hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly. As everything is. I am a Christian. I was totally like wrapped up when I was in like my mid-teens, like wrapped up in the like the cringe like internet atheist.
Same, yeah. We all were.
Stuff. Yeah, but you know, man, I just after many years of I mean, obviously, I think everybody struggles with the certainty of like faith, but I've just seen too much in my own life to really think that at least what I think I've gone through is completely arbitrary. And I don't think that's a cope, because in actuality, I think it might even be a little bit better if there wasn't. Like, I think that the obligation of an objective good and objective bad is actually far more of a like burden than if it was not. So I mean, it would, and I'm no like theologian. I went to Catholic high school and that's about it. Then I was atheist until.
I think that makes sense. That's good, like theological philosophy. Like, I'm not saying like, you know, him saying that it's a burden. It's like, it is. You know, it's like a burden you're supposed to carry. It's hard. And it's a struggle every day. And it's like, yeah, if there was no such thing as like objective good or objective virtue, then yeah, it'd be a lot easier to just sort of organize your values in the way that suits you best. But that's just not the case. I think that's just very acute. That's a very sharp, you know, that's the truth. That's facts. Facts. Zabasky, I wish I knew what your real name was. I just see ZSBACSKAI. I don't know how to say that. I have no idea how to say that, man. This kid might actually be doing that haircut exactly to look like the ancient Rome or Greek. He sure loves them quotes. I would be surprised if Joey was so shallow to just like, oh, I'll mimic the ancient Romans. I mean, look, I don't know. I don't know Joey that well, but it would shock me if he was like shallow like that. Carrick Von K, excuse me. The funny thing is that the South used to be the most cultured people in America. The Southern gentleman is known for a reason. It's not about hating country folk. That's interesting. I wasn't really aware of that. I wasn't keyed into that. I read Thomas Sowell's, what's it called? Black Rednecks and White Liberals, about the way the South, large swaths of the South were settled. And in that essay, he makes the argument that a lot of what we consider, quote, black culture was actually kind of Southern cracker culture, or sort of this cracker culture that came out of like Celtic tribes that were like unsavory, in the homelands, in like, Ireland, Scotland, England. There are these people that they just like, get the fuck out of here, get on a boat and go across the ocean for the love of God. And they brought this culture with them, a lot of pride, a lot of like dirty fighting. It's a really good read, actually. I'd recommend it. And it was just kind of very insightful. And then that ended up getting passed on into the Black community that lived in those areas. And then that's where a lot of that comes from, this sort of like thing. But it was like, oh, that's what I kind of know about the propagation of Southern culture. But that's very interesting.
Probably like, 23, 24. But I guess to contend with your, I agree with you that universalism that is deployed is an attack, right? Mm-hmm. It's like it's trying to invert the instincts also, which are often good.
Flatten the hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly. And that is really, that seems to be, you could even make the argument that like the devil even conceptually.
That is interesting. F3UI Berghardt. That is interesting. Cracker comes from the word crack, which is where wisecrack comes from. Oh, I didn't know that. Possibly Florida cracker. I always wondered why they called us crackers, and they tried to say it was like the whip cracker. I'm like, that doesn't satisfy that. I don't think that that's accurate. And that makes perfect sense because my Irish buddy, he's from Cork. When we first started becoming friends a few years ago, he was like, hey, what's the crack? I was like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. What is this terminology you're using? Obviously, I understand it now. Like, what's the good time? What's the good news? Like, what's the crack? Or if like we have a good night out, it's like, oh, that was a bit of crack. Like that's like the terminology that they use. I'd never fucking heard that shit. I had no idea what he was talking about. But that makes perfect sense. Slasher. To do that, you would have to remove. You would have too much remove of the blacks and get white people back to work. I have no idea what you're talking about. All their racial slurs for us are lame as fuck. They are, dude. They're so bad. They're so bad. I remember when I heard snow bunny going around, I thought they meant people who ski. Because that's when I was growing up, like the hot chicks who was skiing on the mountain were snow bunnies. That's what they called them. I thought that's what they meant. I didn't realize that was just some new lame slam on white people. Every time I ever hear like an insult on white people, I'm like, that's actually not that bad. That's pretty cool. I don't even care. Like, it's like, all right, yeah, go with that one.
The goal of the devil is to destroy distinctions, because if you destroy distinctions, you destroy a hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if you don't believe that literally, mm-hmm. those forces still exist and they still act upon the world. So you can draw, this is like this is literally what like Richard Spencer and Mark Brahman say about like Apollonianism, which I'm not all that fluent in, but his point is essentially the ideals that the god Apollo embodies. Even if he's not sitting on top of Mount Olympus, those ideals exist and you can strive for them too. And they can be, personified, embodied in the real world. They exist whether that actual being is there or not. And I also really struggle.
Before he goes on here, I want to touch on that because I think that is more important than many people realize. That thing about Apollo having these virtues that we can strive for. That was the exact reason I ever got into YouTube. I was an actor in LA and I was reading all these scripts and living in the 2010s, dude, when it was so incredibly crazy woke and the culture, to borrow from the boomers and MAGA, was under siege. Every property we loved, every single thing that we grew up enjoying was just being turned into like this gay race communism, girl power bullshit. And I'm like, what the fuck? What is going on? And because I lived in LA, it just seemed like, and the media environment was so radically different 10 years ago. It just seemed like it was everything. And I was just alone in not like agreeing and finding this all just appalling. And then I found all these guys online like Nerdrotic, Mauler, Critical Drinker, those dudes who like were fiercely critical of it, articulate, and could, even express it and understand it on a greater level than even I could. And I was like, holy shit, like these are my people. Thank God. Like I didn't know. Like I was just like, it was so relieving. I was like being baptized. I was like, oh, cleansed. Like I can actually, this is great. Like there's other people out there who think like me. That's fantastic. And so I got into that, and then eventually during the pandemic kind of jumped in like doing that type of shit. And I think there's a real importance in those myths, even if they are, even if like I could work out my whole life and never get as big as like say Arnold or whatever, just using an example. It's like, it's still cool to know that like that's possible, like that's out there, and that's someone to like look up to and emulate. And I think like the virtues that our heroes used to extol, like those matter. Those form culture. They're cultural touchstones. They kind of describe how we feel about ourselves and the things that like matter to us, and like how we see ourselves, how we see our culture. All that shit I think is extraordinarily important. And like that's something that like Joey's touching on there a little bit. It's like these things like, they are objectively real virtues, even if like it's you're struggling to obtain them. That struggle is a virtuous struggle. That's a good struggle. That's like important to have that, like something to look up to. The feminists would always say, oh, these impossible body standards for women. It's like, no, it's good to have impossibly high standards because you'll never achieve it, but it's good to work towards it. It's like if you got into martial arts or something, like, I got into boxing for a long time, and it was, once you know the basics, you realize, oh, I'll never actually be good at this. Like I'll never be like, on a like even semi-pro. I'm never going to be that good. These guys are so fast. They're so skilled. They're so knowledgeable. They're so good at this. It's impossible. It's like if you play golf, right? Like you're never going to be on the PGA Tour, but you know that excellence is out there, and you can strive to get just a little bit closer to it when you do your work. And I think that is the type of thing that's like important. That is so fundamental for a culture to have those types of things to look up to. Also to humble yourself before the things that you're not excellent at, like that you are human, that you're not some, like, I think that's like one of the biggest problems with these like young chicks is like they're promised the world, and then when they get out there and they try to accomplish it all, they can't. It's impossible. And so it's like, I think all that starts, the cognitive dissonance starts coming in, and the collapse of their own self-esteem and the way that they interface with the world. And then I think that's when they become pretty radical, because they're like, oh, well, I was told it was never going to be my fault. I was like, if there's anything wrong, anything went wrong, or anything has ever gone wrong, it was, fill in the blank group, white Christian men. And so it's like, well, then it must be their fault. So let's radically change that. I think that's true. This guy was the guy on the right was on Zeb's show a few months back. Yeah, that's Joey Oliver, Right Wing Coalition. Yeah, they did an episode together. Absolutely. Damn, you're still going. Let's fucking go, Junior. I do this show for like 3 hours, brother. I do this show 3 hours on Sunday night. Do you think our individualism is the reason they can't find words that hurt you? They say the word, you know that it's true on some other whites, but it's not you, so you do not give a shit. That's interesting. I think a part of our strength is the fact that we don't have that collective identity to the same degree, right? Like, I think if you look at the way black people think of black people, it's like one strike against one of them is a strike against all of them, right? Go to like on X, go to like any YouTube where like a black guy's looking like an idiot or doing something stupid. Invariably, you will find black people in the X comments being like, oh, like, you don't know about that, or what happened before this video, like defending them. And I always thought that was the stupidest thing black people could do if they were trying to become like culturally serious, was to defend people like Mike Brown. Maybe not George Floyd as much, because the video did look pretty bad, even though it was proven out to be bullshit. But those people who are just like, that guy's a piece of shit. That guy's a criminal. He put they like 40 arrests or whatever before he was killed. Like, it's like, that guy's scum. You shouldn't stand up for that guy like he's like the end all be all. It's like, that guy sucks. Cut him loose. And white people don't have that problem. We don't have that issue. We don't have to just take on the worst as like a representation of us. We're like, no, that guy sucks. Fuck that guy. So I wonder if it's like, excuse me. I wonder if that kind of individualism is something where we don't really have that problem, but we also do have so many like fantastic accomplishments, that Europe has done that we can also kind of collectively take on. So yeah, I think it's probably a combination of those things.
If you're going to abandon, and I don't know, I guess where you guys would fall as deists, but if you were going to abandon the idea that good and bad, there is no objective good and bad, then I do wonder what is the point, even besides like individual prosperity and will that becomes real, like Nietzschean will to power, which again, there are elements of these things I think are important, but I really do, and I would not have said this maybe even 2 years ago, I really do think it all needs to be undergirded with this idea that there is an objective good and an objective
based.
Yeah, well, we describe ourselves as deists, and we subscribe to natural law, which I think in a lot of ways does encompass Christianity, but not all the way, especially contemporary Christianity. And I really view the universalism as something.
Dude, what the fuck are you talking about? He's a Jew from Canada? Fucking no, he is not. He's a fucking Christian from Seattle. I don't know where you're getting that from, man. I'd love to see you support that one. Let's see some sources on that.
That is impeding upon us making real progress, especially when, like you said, rightfully, the clock is ticking here.
Okay, this guy is a fucking, he's a Russian bot. That's, I'm just going to say that unsubstantiated. I'm not going to substantiate that claim. I'm just going to say it. This guy works for the fucking Kremlin. You can just say anything on the internet, dude. It doesn't mean I'm going to take it seriously. You're going to have to come with some fucking evidence to just launch a claim about this guy. Let's see some proof, bud. No. Mod me and I'll post links. You can DM me on Twitter, Foulball Pro.
And, I'm not somebody who believes that Christianity is fundamentally subversive. I think that it was weaponized somewhere along the way throughout history. I don't know when exactly how to pinpoint that. That's something that theologians argue about meticulously. I'm not sure that it actually matters at the end of the day. To me, it really doesn't matter if you're a pagan, a Christian, or a deist. I would prefer people not to be atheists, right? Because there has to be some sort of moral parameter to which we subscribe to guide our actions. There has to be some sort of...
See, this is where the Wignats kind of start to lose me. It's like this sort of like race is the highest, is that like the kind of the highest virtue. And it's like, I don't actually agree with that. I don't agree with like that. I do think you don't care if you're a pagan. It's like, well, listen, dude, like Europeans are not like uniquely virtuous from our blood. It's not like we were just born nicer or born, with a instinct to be kind. It was 2,000 years of Christianity that guided our morals. And if you don't believe me, just look at the fucking Vikings. You know what I mean? The way that they would behave, the culture of rape and pillage and destruction, or any of the Celtic tribes that lived in mainland Europe. They weren't like inherently virtuous. It was Christian society that formed that and molded that for thousands of years. That's where it comes from. So it's like to kind of separate the two is, I think, counterproductive. And not to mention, we're getting into some pretty dangerous territory. We're getting into some pretty contentious, potentially violent territory, right? When you start engaging with stuff like this, it's like it's way preferable to have a Christian framing on top of that so that we don't lose ourselves in this fight. We don't lose like the things that made us great to begin with. I find that just completely misguided when people throw out the Christianity. It's like, well, it's like, no, firmly disagree. Firmly disagree. He just got off the 2015 boat. Whom is this? I'm not sure who you're talking about. Said he was born in San Francisco and lived in Seattle from college until college. Yeah, I don't know what this guy's talking about. Also is Russian and gay and full of it. Okay, brother. All right, cool, man. This is really helpful stuff, blood-based. Anytime you want to send me the DM with the proof, the DMs are open, buddy. So anytime you want to come with any kind of evidence for your ridiculous fucking claim, I'm waiting. Okay?
Axiomatic framework to draw a code of ethics from. So I would prefer people to be in one of those three, or at least adjacent to one of those three religious camps. But it really is the universalism that is blockading a lot of people from drawing these final conclusions. And I almost view this final power struggle for the European race almost as the final evolution that we are going to go through as a people. And whether or not we can discard universalism as a ideology is actually going to be a sort of selection pressure, evolutionarily speaking. And I think that's a
really good point.
And people that do not overcome that internally, I think are not going to make it. I don't think that they have what it takes to survive what is about to happen to us.
But you know where that really
Junior Williams, if you're leading or trying to lead a movement and believe that you don't bring people to your side by spewing that nonsense, most Christians are revolted by paganism, and they should be. They should be. Like, Christianity, there's a reason it survived. There's a reason why it has touched so many people, why a 2,000-year-old, book and man's sacrifice can inspire so many, because there's so much utility in it and there's so much truth in it. And once you come to grips with that, you start to realize it inside yourself. And then it allows you to actually be a more virtuous person, because it's like you have to come to grips with that reality that you are fallen, that you are flawed. And it's like once you can accept that about yourself is when you can truly begin to like become a more virtuous person and contribute. It's that it's hedonism, and like that type of lack of framework and principles is the same thing that turned the libertarian movement into this the gayest, wokest, hedonistic, anarchic, fucking awful group of people. Is that there isn't like a moral framework on top of it. Like, as much as the good libertarians love to quote, they kind of feel like the magic document is what does it. Like it's the magic constitution that just, if we just have these sort of guidelines, it'll all just fall into place. It's like, well, first of all, Liberia. Second of all, you're not taking into account the people who were, who were existing in that culture, who created that government. They're all, for the most part, white Christians. And if they aren't, like, if they weren't actually like, they didn't believe in God, it's like, well, they definitely were raised in the tradition to carry the culture. So maybe personally in their heart, they didn't accept Jesus Christ or something like that, but they carried the culture. And that matters, man. That's very significant. They wanted to separate church and state because they didn't want church to have political power over the government like it had happened in the Middle Ages for so long. So this kind of divorcing of the two, I firmly reject.
Lies is basically exclusively with women.
In a large part, yes, because women are more susceptible to social engineering. They have women are more feminine temperamentally, obviously. That's part of their energetic composition. So obviously they're going to be the ones that take universalism and like permeate it into society. Like, what is an HR department? Like, why do these different little mini institutions exist within the institutions? It's a feminine framework.
I don't agree with this, my Hungarian friend. I find it interesting, religious claiming moral superiority compared to atheism, since every action by a religious person is selfish action to help their own soul go to the right place. I think you fundamentally misunderstand Christianity if that's your impression. That's not what it's about at all. It's not about I'll be rewarded. First of all, it's more about that there is a real place called hell, and your purpose here is to serve Christ. Like, that's important for you to understand that it's not about rewards. It's about fulfilling your spiritual destiny and your purpose on the planet. It's beyond just like, well, then I'll go to the good place instead of the bad. It's not that simple. It's not. It's like, that's more of it's like a cynical kind of pessimistic way to interpret it. I'm sure that there are some people who think like that, but that's certainly not what I would consider the correct interpretation of the faith. No, it's about being a better person, man. It's about recognizing the flaws in yourself, recognizing your fallen nature and your lack of humanity, and your lack of perfection in your humanity, and trying to live up to like a perfection that you can't ever achieve, and recognizing that and walking through that and owning it when you don't, and continuing to be a more virtuous person for those around you. It's not a selfish thing. It's not selfish to be virtuous to your friends and family. That's not at all a selfish thing. It's a better framework for understanding your nature, I think. And furthermore, I think atheists are totally full of shit. I can't stand fucking atheists. You seem like a cool guy, but I hate the philosophy of atheism because it's based on faith. You can't know that there's no God. You can't prove that. You can't prove a negative. You can believe it, but you don't have proof. So what you're doing is having faith in a non-thing. That's faith. It's like you can be an agnostic. I'll respect that. But if you're like, I believe there's no God, it's like, you can't prove that. So what you're doing is you're holding faith for a different idea. It's still faith, brother.
Exactly. And so I really do think a lot of the battle comes down to masculine, feminine, order, chaos, all that. It like fundamentally even if you look at something like communism, like if leftism is truly the abdication of responsibility in a lot of ways, that's like basically a devolution all the way to the point where, all your needs are catered to by others. That's a fundamentally feminine thing because it's like, I mean, it's kind of inverted a little bit, but it's like to be nurtured, right? It's like you're creating the devouring mother. Whereas if you have like a broadly right-wing ideology, if you were to say even theologically, you have God the Father at the top, right? Like ruling upon the descending kingdom. So a lot of it really does come down to the masculine, feminine. And I mean, I'm hopefully this doesn't like, mess up the stream or whatever, but we have to disenfranchise women out of politics. We just have to. I mean, there is no way around that. And again, like,
let's fucking go. Let's fucking go. I'm starting to like understand this reality more and more. And it just doesn't seem to really be any way around it. It doesn't seem to be, it just seems to be irrefutably true. Which honestly is unfortunate because it's going to be very tough to put that toothpaste back in the tube. It's not easy. Women don't like hearing it. Like I used to date this girl and she was pretty based for a chick, right? She was like MAGA, kind of like just sort of boilerplate Republican. She wasn't that stupid though. She did have some beliefs I didn't share, but regardless, when I would tell her, I'd be like, okay, well, listen, like if you didn't have the right, like if women couldn't vote, right? The society that you want, that you envision with your politics would be more likely to come into reality, to come into fruition. And she just could not accept that. I've said like a similar stuff with my mom too, like, and she's just like, what do you like? It's like this, what? And it's like, I'm sorry. It's true. There's just too much emotional thinking. There's too much feminine nurturing that goes into politics, and it's not say it has no place, but it's very little place, and it creates these circumstances, and they get swayed by narratives that are based on compassion and taking care of people and giving shelter to people, but like it so often works as a Trojan horse. It's like, yeah, that's the nice dressing, that's the nice window dressing that they put on the compassionate welfare for the Black community because of their underprivileged history or whatever. Yeah, what it's created is a nightmare scenario where you have incentive to be fatherless, for homes to be fatherless, and now it's like an obvious term, but like a slave-like dependence on the state for financial any kind of money. And so it's like, yeah, that actually didn't work. Like that was a complete misstep and sort of like permanently put our culture into a really dangerous situation with a permanent underclass that is incentivized towards violent crime because they don't want to lose their benefit status, but they do want to get more money. So it's like, yeah, it didn't work. Like we don't, and it's like you're not going to talk like the modern average white woman liberal out of that because it's like it's too much about compassion. It's too much about feeling bad and feeling, like that girl energy. And it's like, okay, but like it's objectively fucking failing everyone involved. And it's like, they're not going to go. It's like, okay, I'm sorry. It's just, you're not serious. You're just not, you're incapable of actually wielding power the way it needs to be wielded. And you're ushering in our destruction, including your own. You're opening the gates to the invaders because you saw a brown kid on the fucking news who looks sad at the border. I'm sorry that kid's sad. That doesn't mean we need to give away our entire civilization. And it does seem to just be like more and more true. And it's like, not to say that's it, like no place in politics or political conversation, but like, no, it needs to go. It needs to go. Where's Parvini? Who are these ones? We talked about him earlier. He's not on the show. None of these. I am the solo host. This is a commentary show. None of those people in the thumbnail are guests. I tried to convey that as best I could. I really struggled with that. I was trying to come up with a different thumbnail format just so people understand that these people are not on this show. It's a conversation about the people in the thumbnail. If that wasn't conveyed, I apologize. If you have any suggestions on how to make that more obvious, please let me know. But this happens once a week. People think I've assembled the most epic fucking panel in the history of YouTube. But no, it's just those are the subjects. And I talked about his stuff earlier on the first hour. So we covered his interview with Rebecca Hargraves, and then just his kind of discussions of the weaknesses in libertarianism. Parvini's a hard get. He won't do your bar mitzvah. Oy vey. Oy vey. I'm sorry.
I don't. And my argument is, and I've so far it's been irrefutable. If we're really looking at the truth of the matter and how reality exists, let's just say that we knew for certain that 3-4 generations of radical, complete and political empowerment of women led to the destruction of civilization. Let's just say we game theoried that out and we know for sure that happens. Do you know how many liberals would still say, on principle, we have to run that and destroy civilization?
Because the calculation was patriarchal. It was racist and patriarchal. The calculator you ran it on.
Even if
No, not even that. Look, I think I've heard Joey make the same point before, and it's such an astute point. He's absolutely fucking right. No, the reason why is not because of like some kind of gender studies critique. It's because they're ideologically committed to these principles being true, whether or not they bear out to be true. It's the same thing we've been talking about with like race. It's like we have to accept that everyone's the same on the inside, and all these differences are just circumstantial or whatever. It's like they're just fundamentally, they are not. There are fundamental differences. And it's like, well, we can't say women can't vote. We can't say women can't participate in the political process because, well, that's just wrong. It's like, no, everyone's got the same level of, representation. It's just like, okay, but knowing that if we follow through on that will lead to the end of this society. He's right. Many, many liberals would still go along with it based on the virtue of the concept, not even its application. Just the concept is so virtuous, and you still see it. That was. We're talking a lot about Joey, but obviously he's on the thing, and I just read his book. But that was like the biggest thing that contributed to the fall of the intellectual dark web. And like Joey goes over this whole thing. There's a whole chapter about it. But it's exactly that. It was this, they just wanted to get back to centrism and classical liberalism. And that's not the final destination, man. That is not the correct conclusion, because that's exactly what led us here. That's exactly how we ended up here. That is not the prescription. You have to accept that. That is important to understand. And so it's like, because they still, it's like they cling to it desperately. Even like guys like Jordan Peterson, it's just like they can't undo the wiring. They're like, no. And he's right. That's exactly right. There will be people that would be willing to just destroy the entire civilization in service of those principles, of those virtues that don't even really exist. Tix Bomber. There are people who would gladly walk off a cliff edge with the delusion that they were right. It's true. It's like when you see like Sam Harris like still can't relinquish that he was wrong about COVID. It's like, well, I was spiritually right, like as if that fucking matters, man. There's right and wrong. There are objective rights and there are objective wrongs, and you were objectively wrong, pal. Not that I take that guy seriously or ever took that guy seriously, but it's a good example. It's a goddamn good example. Would you say that classical liberalism ultimately leads to a multicultural democracy socialism? That's a great question. It certainly has in the United States of America. Did it in England? I don't know. I don't know if it was classical liberalism or if it was the post-war consensus. It might have been more the post-war consensus than classical liberalism, but the problem with classical liberalism is there isn't enough moral framework in it. It doesn't account for these variables that they didn't have to account for in the 1600s. They didn't have to consider multiculturalism because there was no such fucking thing. There were fierce identity battles. I mean, between the Protestants and the Catholics. That was a real cultural issue between Protestants and Catholics, between Welsh and Englishmen, between the Scots and Englishmen. Those were the cultural battle lines. They weren't thinking about an influx of fucking several million Pakistanis. They couldn't even have fathomed such a thing. It would have never even come up as a debate. Why? Why would you even mention so? Like, what are you talking about? That would never even be a thought. So these philosophies were invented at a time where that just wasn't even a consideration. So it's just not necessarily that the philosophy itself is broken. It's just that it's inadequate. It's out of date. It just needs to be updated for the modern world because it just obviously is not applicable. It was really meant like we think of it in the terms that we think of now, but you have to think of it in the terms that they were living in when monarchy was a thing, when dukes and these different barons and such had like higher legal rights than your average peasant. So if they did something to you that we would consider immoral or wrong or unjust, it didn't matter. They had like authority to do it because the law treated them differently. And that was the thing that they were trying to chip away, to get away from, so that it wasn't this complete power imbalance and the people living in those societies weren't just peasants. It was like they deserve dignity too. They deserve humanity and they deserve a fair trial. It wasn't meant to apply to the entire fucking world. It was meant for that's why the English don't even have a constitution now. It's like common English law. It's just understood. So it's like, that's why it's like, yeah, I mean, in our current framework, it will, because it's inadequate. It's insufficient. It doesn't account for all these other variables that just were not variables in the 1600s. John Locke didn't have to wrestle with that. It wasn't a problem. Where's Scott Horton? Scott Horton's not on this show. I guess I really do need to come up with a new concept. I'm very sorry, Polaris. This is a topic. Those are the topics. Scott Horton, Darryl Cooper, Neema, and Joey, the Right Wing Coalition. They're the topics of the show. I really do need to develop a new way to put that in the thumbnail because people keep getting confused. And I'm sorry. I'm not trying to trick you. I was going to talk about Scott Horton. We're actually not going to have even time to get to him today, so I apologize. This ended up going a lot longer than I expected with Joey and FroJax, but I was going to talk about their episode of Provoked that happened on Friday, but I'm not even going to do that. So I'm sorry you feel tricked. I didn't mean to trick you. That was truly not my intention. I'm not a clickbait fraudster. I'm just bad at making thumbnails, and I'm sorry. I don't know how else to do it. I don't. I tried all these different things. I tried to put like little TVs around their head. It still looked like they were on the show. And I'm like, all right, well, if I put the thing about the conversations, then people will understand that I'm discussing the conversations, I hope. But nope, second person who came in. I'm sorry.
They knew for sure they would still follow that. So
because they're suicidal, they're self-destructive. They don't believe in actual order or truth. They believe in death.
I would agree with everything you said.
I think we interrupt. I'm sorry. I think we interrupted.
Oh, you're good. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree with the principle of what you're saying, but I would actually formulate it slightly differently. I wouldn't say that women have to be disenfranchised. I think that women's natural role has been disenfranchised by modernity and foreign influence. I would advocate for the restoration of social.
That's funny. That's funny, Zizbaki. Saying having a wife, 3 daughters, 2 granddaughters. Sometimes I do ask the question if the Arabs are doing it right. Well, that was a meme for a while. But Islam's right about women. And look, don't get it twisted. Christianity was not always like whores in bikinis, man. Christianity used to be a lot more puritanical. You know what I mean? There's a degree of that in Christianity too. You see it in Judaism. The women are supposed to cover their hair. That's why the Orthodox wear those wigs, because it's the same kind of principle. I'm not saying we need to revert to that. I don't think we need to take our cues from the Jews or the Muslims, but there was more puritanical like nature in Christianity, and it all just got washed out of Western society because it was like oppressive and it was unfair and it was archaic. And it's like, yeah, no, I'm starting to firmly disagree that was out of place. It seems like that was a necessity. Next thumb, I give up on thumbs. There's no interview. Just like text, black text on white. I knew this was going to happen. I toiled today to try to, and I'm like, no, I think if I just put the caption, they'll get it. There's no way I assembled this panel. It's like, that would be a dream panel. That definitely didn't happen. No, I guess not. What's up? Datku. I arrived late and my first time here. At first I thought AA and Blonde were the other guests, but I figured it out. Shit. I need to fix this. Damn it. That happened last week too. Someone was like, is Fuentes on this show? I was like, no, we're just talking about him. He's like, clickbait. And I was like, fuck, I'm sorry. You're right. I need to figure out how to do it. I can't. I was working with like AI. I was like, well, how should I convey this? Like, what do people normally do? And then I would try it. I'd put it out there. I'm like, this still looks like they're on the show. It looks like I'm the host. So I'd put a picture of myself in the thumbnail, which I don't really like to do. And then it looked like I'm the host and they're all my guests. I'm like, shit, this isn't working either. I don't know. Fuck.
Social order. And so I'm admittedly very extreme on the woman question. Once again, not because it starts from a place of animosity,
but because we want banana.
It's because the restoration of social order is a moral good. And so I would say women don't need to just be disenfranchised. They need to be punished necessarily in the interim. While we're restoring order, I think we would have to be very.
It's going to be a tough sell. That's going to be a tough one to run on. I vow to my fellow Americans to punish women for thinking they can participate in our system. Look what they've done with it. Okay, ladies, get in a line. Time for spanking.
Harsh, because it's like you said,
yeah,
we've given them freedom, and you can draw upon similar examples. We've given black people freedom. We've given brown people freedom. And I always ask people this in debates, what are 1, 2, or 3 tangible benefits we have received as a society as a result of, in an unprecedented manner, in an egalitarian manner, giving freedom to women or all these non-white people? We don't gain anything. It inverts these eternal hierarchies and leaves people who would otherwise in an actual meritocracy be successful. It leaves the actually competent people more disenfranchised. It's an inversion of natural order.
Exactly.
Absolutely fucking based. Mark Vendy, what's up, dog? How you doing? Women have a duty to uphold their family's dignity by upholding their own dignity, not a right to be a whore. Modern Westerners think God is all about love with no concern for honor. That's true, too. Like, I've been trying to talk my mom into becoming a Christian, and she's just like, isn't it all about being nice to people? Wasn't Jesus just... I'm like, not if you read it. Like, he was, like, pretty fucking severe. It was, like, unequivocal. It was, like, follow me or burn. It was, like... He wasn't being a big sweetie pie all the time about it. You know what I mean? Like, his message is about love, but it's like there was some severity in it too. Like, he wasn't a hippie. You know what I mean? Not by any stretch of the fucking word. But yeah, no, I was saying something similar that, like, you know, women they do, if it's not their father, they have a tough time like taking lessons or listening to men. They really do. It's like, I've seen this kind of universally. And I don't think it's just a product of modern culture. I think it's a product of female, like group-oriented like dynamics. They're sort of like the way they evolved to be like more of a hive. And I think the barriers that used to keep women from being whores and keep them from virtuous were older women. Like, older women were the ones that would kind of, you know, keep them guided and keep them more virtuous, or at least as best as they could. But now that we've shattered that, there are no guidelines. And anytime a guy tries to tell women like what to do, they fucking freak out. They can't hear it. And it's like without the women like taking care of the other women, or, you know, learning through like life that, oh wow, these feminist virtues I thought that I cared about, that I thought were real, were bullshit. Like you have to force it on them to get them to behave, because it's like they flat out just will not. Many of them will just not listen to any kind of reason, especially if it comes from a guy. So it's tough. M the Goat, who are these two guys gay? Who are these two guys gay? They are FroJax. I don't know them. I know that they interviewed Joey here. They seem to be the deists, which I'm not even sure what that means. But they're like, I guess, white nationalists is the impression I get of what they're talking about. But they're pretty interesting. They're also young. I tend to give guys, you know, a little bit more leeway. If you're coming up, you're learning. Look, shit, I was talking about who the fuck I was just like a year ago, how different I was politically. So everyone's evolving. We're all on our own journey, guys. We're all on our own journey. A few gay guys I know have a deep hatred towards women. It's actually hilarious. Well, imagine not wanting to fuck them. You know what I mean? I'm fucking, like, they're already annoying as hell. If you didn't want to bang them, you know what I mean? You would just be like, why are they here? What are these people here for? Junior Williams, an excellent point. There is no advantage to multiculturalism for white people. We don't need nons, but they need us and what we have built. Look, I'm not like a racial absolutist. I think multiculturalism can exist in small numbers. I think there's a threshold. I don't think we need to live in a purely white society. You know, I don't mind like having enrichment from other cultures. And I mean that without irony, and I mean that without sarcasm. I do think that there actually is something in that. But I think it needs to be a small number. Like the Hart-Celler Act was the thing that just blew that all wide open, where there used to be like origin quotas. Like it had to be mostly Europeans. Now that that's gone, we're not getting diversity. We're just getting enclaves. We're just getting homogeneity in different pockets. It's not like everyone's just, you know, oh, you cross over and now suddenly you understand like the tenets of Christian or English liberalism. You like, it's not how it works at all. We're not integrating. We're not becoming this fabric. We're not. It's becoming balkanized. And that's not good for anybody, least of all the host population. So I'm more of the mind of just like, yeah, no, diversity is fine in very small numbers. You know what I mean? Like in very controlled numbers, that's fine. It's just the fact that what they want, they don't want diversity. That's just the term. That's the Trojan horse term they use to just be anti fucking white. Live, laugh, love on your journey. Absolutely, Mark. That's good mentality. We need more of that amongst the Nazis. All right, we are running out of time, so let's do one last clip here from this show. But I thought this was a good conversation. Like I said, you know, I don't necessarily agree with all these guys, but I don't need to agree with absolutely everything someone thinks to get something out of the conversation or to find virtue in some of their points of view and their perspectives. I think there's sometimes people get a little too pure. No, I found 1-2 things I don't like about them. Well, now that's it. It's like, no, it doesn't. What positive attributes do they have? Like what are their positive contributions? Like glean that, you know? That's my feeling on the matter.
For the very people that refuse to give it, because there is this struggle, and the only way. So when I say disenfranchised women, I mean that's a very broad statement. But I think what we really need to do is sell them on the idea that being a woman is not being a defective man.
Right.
It is its own thing with its own value, its own purity, its own divinity, even that they should want to embody. Because once you can convince them, you know, to actually desire that placement in society, that competition goes away. That competition of, would you treat me this way if I was a man, or what, you know what I'm saying? And what is all of that? That's a attempt to destroy the distinction. Yes. And once we reaffirm that, you know, but I do think, I mean, look, I have plenty of complaints about the modern woman. I could go on, you know, But at the same time, I do, and I really understand the reflex for people to just, be very intolerant, I guess, to that behavior and that disposition. But if we actually are interested in winning and not complaining and not platitudes, we're going to have to find a way to sell them on it. And a big way that happens is...
Before he gets into this, which I think is really interesting, he's right. And that's a problem that I have not been able to crack. It's something that I haven't been able to solve. Like I come at it from the totally wrong angle, where I think I can make the magic bullet of precise words and phrasing and context, and I can strike through that. That's not going to happen. That's not how women make decisions en masse. Certainly there are variations amongst women. There are women who are more intellectual and can handle arguments, but on the whole, it's a consensus-based thing. So my strategy of the magic verbal bullet of trying to get the point across probably will have very little impact on women. What he's saying is a really sharp, like acute thing. But the truth of the matter is like they do kind of need to be sold, because we have given them so much agency in our nation. It's kind of, there's no way around it. It's like, yeah, it'd be easier if they just didn't have a say. It's like, yeah, but they do. You know what I mean? Like, and nothing is that's as much wish casting as your violent overthrow of the government. It's like, okay, but that's just not going to happen. You can be like, man, in my house. Yeah. Okay. Fucking tough guy. But like in reality, in our society at large, it is going to have to be sold. If you like Miracle Whip, you're not white. Okay. Isn't mayonnaise like a white thing? I don't think I've actually ever had Miracle Whip in my life. My mom's a chef, so she would never stoop. She hated pre-made stuff. She hated all that packaged shit. So I don't know. I mean, we always had mayonnaise in my house. So I've never had Miracle Whip. I don't know. I can't weigh in on the Miracle Whip debate. Decked. As I said earlier, this is my first time here. I've enjoyed the conversation tonight. I'll give a like and subscribe and see you next time. Fuck yeah, dude. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. It's good of you to stop by. We do this every Sunday. Go for about 3 hours, different conversations. I will work on the thumbnails. I'm going to have to crowdsource this. I'm going to have to ask all my YouTuber friends, be like, what's your thoughts? How do I do this? Because it's just not working. But thank you. Good to have you here, brother.
Replacing, again, people really don't, you guys sound like you do. Most people don't understand power. If you were at a high school and you wanted to convert as many people to far right politics or whatever as possible, most people would think you start like a Turning Point USA chapter and you hand out flyers or whatever. What you would actually do is convince the handsome quarterback of the football team to be far right, and then it matriculates down. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, obviously it's just a simplistic example. When that happens, then the women understand that the highly desired men, they're molded to that, and so it doesn't.
He's 100% right. 100% right. What happened as soon as Trump got elected, right? As soon as there was this perceived massive right-wing cultural shift, what happened with all of a sudden we have trad wife influencers. All of a sudden we have once probably before he got elected, but during the early part of the decade where Biden was clearly a fool, the left, they had overextended themselves, become parodies of themselves. It was oppressive to everybody. Nobody was into it. They weren't making good art. They were just a cultural punchline, even though they were still in power. But what happened? Women started gravitating towards the other because it became so uncool to be on the left. And then the cultural leaders or the social male leaders or the male alphas or chads are the ones who have the highest profile that the women just gee whiz look up to. The women started shifting once those guys started shifting, and all of a sudden all their signals started, not all of them, but many of their signals started to become this sort of right wing, white girls started being racist online. He's 100% right. They will follow that trend because that's how most women are not individual. Most women's minds are formed more by consensus and by trends than they are by a logical, well-structured argument. Like I said, it's not to say there aren't, because I've known some intellectual women in my life. I've known women who can wrestle with good ideas and can actually, there's limits to it, but they can, get there. But it's just not the mass of them. And so it's like you just have to deal with the reality. The outliers are outliers for a reason. Yes, Miracle Whip is the margarine of the mayo world. That's a great analogy. That's pretty funny. I have no idea. What's even in Miracle Whip? I have no idea. Is it just like shitty mayonnaise or is it different? Miracle Whip ingredients. It's sweet and tangy condiment from Kraft. Water, vegetable oil, sugars. Okay, so it has sugar. That's not typically a mayo. Vinegar, modified cornstarch, egg yolk. So far, that's pretty much mayo. Spices. Salt, mustard, spices. So it's just that it's spiced mayonnaise and it's cheap and shitty. I don't know. I've never tried it. I feel like if I even brought it into to my mom's house, she'd be fucking furious. So I don't fucking know. OnlyFans models are becoming trad wives overnight. Exactly. But yeah, no, I think his cultural prescription is spot on. It's the best one I've heard too. Like we keep expecting them to be like cudgeled into coming to see it our way. It's like it's probably not going to happen.
Start from logic and first principles with women. We actually have to recapture the culture, and then all of that falls into line naturally because it's in line with the natural law, natural order.
Mm-hmm. And I like this type of thinking too from Joe, because I feel like a lot of what happens with the right is and I'll blame myself on this as well, we get too caught up in politics. We get too caught up in the actual mechanics of politics and who's in office and the debates and the discussions and the ideas that we kind of lose sight of culture. And culture is so important because most people aren't, ultra online politically minded people. You know what I mean? Most people maybe had to take a casual interest in it, but they really just want to enjoy a good movie. They really just want to, have the new hit song or whatever the culture, the actual texture of culture is. And it's refreshing to hear someone on the right say, no, that's the most important place. Like that's like where the battleground needs to be fought, especially to like recapture the women. And it's like, fuck yes, dude. That's so fucking, that's so accurate. Tix Bomber. There's only two camps. There's two camps. There's only two camps usually. One that loves mayo and hates Miracle Whip. The other is vice versa. I would imagine it's a country thing. The Texan girl that I used to be with, she didn't like mayonnaise in any form. So I don't think she was not a good bellwether. I couldn't tell. Mark Vendy. But women tolerate abuse from Chad. So let's start with convincing Chad, then turn Chad into Muhammad and never unleash the fembeast again. Just get a radical Islamic insurgent force in the football quarterbacks, the Chads in our nation. It's an interesting strategy. I don't know. I'm not gonna. Good luck. See how the test pool goes. All right, that's where we're gonna wrap it up for today's show of the Right Wing Pulse. I thank you very much for watching this episode with me. I apologize for not being here for the past month. Essentially, it's been a rough couple weeks, man. I had to pack it for moving. Sucks dick, and I've moved like I guess this would be the third time in 5 years. And you'd think you'd be used to it. You'd think you'd be prepared. And I thought I was. I like pre-packed and shit and a bunch. And then it was like, when it was coming down to the wire, oh my God, there was just so much to do. It was such a struggle. I hated it. And then I had to do that. And then I drove across the country. And then there was this thing on last Sunday where I just couldn't do it. But I'm back, baby. We're doing Right Wing Pulse every friggin' Sunday night. Thank you. Thank you very much, Spelly Balls. I appreciate that, brother. It means a lot coming from y'all. It means a lot, and moving does indeed suck. It sucks so far. It took me 3 days to drive across the country because I had 2 cats with me. So I had to drive across the country and stop at hotels. I stopped in Tennessee, in Memphis, outside of Memphis, and then in Virginia. Oh, God, endless. I listened to 2 audiobooks all the way through. You know what I mean? Like long form audiobooks. I listened. It was just so much driving. Junior Williams, I almost sold my truck years ago because I was always being asked to help move. Oh my God, that's fun. Well, because a buddy of mine, my buddy Connor in Austin, he works construction, so he got his boss's truck, and that was like lifesaver. You know, I mean, otherwise I guess I'd get a rental truck, but yeah, no, the pickups come in handy. Great stream. Thank you very much, M the Goat. I appreciate you. Appreciate you guys. You guys are fantastic. This was a lot of fun. I love doing this show. It's a blast to talk about these conversations. I mean, this is why I created this show, because I listen to this shit anyway, and it's nice to just talk about it with all y'all. So thank you very much for watching this episode of the Right Wing Pulse. And like I said, we will be back next week with a new show, with new conversations, and hopefully a new YouTube format or a new thumbnail template. All right, you guys have a great fucking night. I'll see you later.
Shooters, I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue.
I mean, Keir Starmer's not.
Well, he did make a call about this.
No, Keir Starmer is every bit as enslaved as Donald Trump is. It is illegal. It is a crime for which you can be arrested in Britain right now, criticizing Israel.
I want to cut my off and scramble my brain with fucking fluoride. I'm gonna win because Netflix is worth $3 trillion. I can't believe the dollars are this high.
It's a society that hates God. It's a society where the family is completely deconstructed and destroyed. It's a society that hates Nazis but loves communism.
You're always confronted with the same stupid question. You know, does Israel have a right to exist? Does Israel have a right to exist? The real question at this point is whether the rest of the world has an obligation to put an end to this.